Alright everyone, so in this lesson, I'm going to be taking you into the main ad account for Flex Posture, and I'm going to show you exactly how I launched the product with Facebook. So first, a few things I want to clarify. So right now I've got the lifetime stats pulled up, and as you can see, I spent $513,000 to make back $990,000, so for a ROAS of 1.93. Now in reality, this column you can add about 5 to 10% because Facebook doesn't track all conversions accurately, and so there's a few conversions that were missing here, and so the real ROAS was slightly above 2.0. Now, another thing is this ad account is all in Canadian dollars. And so the numbers that you're seeing, if they seem a little high, that's because it's in Canadian dollars. And so you can divide it by 1.3 to 1.35 to get it to US dollars, depending on the day, because of the exchange rate. And so in reality, this account was responsible for about 750,000 US dollars in sales, which is a large majority of the sales for Flex Posture. And the rest of the sales came from a mix of Instagram influencers and Google ads, which I'm going to show you later in this section, and also a little bit from another Facebook ad account that I started using near the end of when I was running the store. But the whole launch was done just with this ad account, and so I'm going to show you exactly step by step how I launched it. Now, last thing I want to point out before we get started is that I have a filter on for the campaign name, and it must contain FP. The reason that I do this is FP stands for Flex Posture. And so right now I'm only showing campaigns that are relevant to Flex Posture because there was 1 or 2 campaigns that I did on this ad account that weren't relevant to Flex Posture. And so I just wanted to filter out that data. And so this is all the Flex Posture data. And I'm going to show you step by step how I launched the product. So let's get right into it. So the first day was the 21st. So if I go to the 20th, you'll see that there was nothing spent. And if I go to the 21st, you'll see that this is when I started spending. So what did I do on the very first day? Well, so I had this video ad. This was my first video ad. And I already showed this to you in the creating your one product brand module. I showed you how I created this first ad. And this was the first ad that I launched with. And so the first thing that I did is that I posted this ad on my page. So I didn't create an ad inside of Ads Manager. I posted it on my page. Now the reason that I like doing this when I'm starting a new store is that when your page is empty, it kind of looks, it doesn't look very active. It doesn't look very trustworthy. And so when you're starting out a new page for a new brand, I like to run my ads as page posts to get some engagement on the page and to make it look really active. And so another benefit of doing that, of using page posts instead of using dark posts, is that you can get some organic traffic and, Facebook rewards pages that have a lot of real engagement. And so by doing page posts, you can get lower CPM sometimes. Now, there are some downsides to using page posts, namely is you can't choose the call to action, and you also, you can add a call to action, but I didn't do that, and so it would just default to the learn more call to action. And the other thing is that when you do page posts, a lot of people can find your ads, and so if people use like keywords to try to find ads, they can find your ads when they search on Facebook. And so there's some pros and cons to using page posts, but when I'm starting out with a new store, I like using page posts. I think that it really helps make the page look more active. So what I did is I posted this ad to the page. Now I deleted it now because I was running these ads without proper watermarking, and I was starting to scaling them, and a lot of people were copying them. And so I deleted everything and I reposted them with watermarks. Like, just to show you the watermarks, I would always have watermarks. All the videos that are left over have watermarks like this because too many people were stealing them. And so if you're doing page posts with watermarks, you're good. And so that's what I was doing. And so I posted this video as a page post, and the caption, just to show you the caption, I think it was the same one that I used here. So improve your posture instantly, get it while it's still 50% off plus free worldwide shipping. And so that's what I did. I posted it as a page post, and then I went to Ads Manager and I created a PP campaign for that page post. So I created a new PP campaign, and then the ad, I just clicked use existing post, and I selected that post. And so that's what I did. And so I can't show you the post because, like I said, I deleted it. Like if I go to preview, it doesn't exist anymore. And so that's what I did. I created a PP campaign. Now this PP campaign, I had 2 ad sets in it. One was worldwide, excluding the US, Canada, UK, and Australia. And so just to show you the actual targeting, it was worldwide, excluding those 4 countries, 18 to 65 plus, English UK, English US, so the two English languages. And then it was on auto placements. So now it switched to edit placements, but it was on auto placements. And so that's what I did. And then I also had a US ad set. So same kind of idea, just the US 18 to 45. So I don't know why I did 18 to 45 instead of 18 to 65 plus. But yeah, so I was targeting, and then same thing again, just that one ad inside. And the other ads that were there, I think they were just different caption variations, and I just turned them off because one was clearly performing better. And so yeah, that's what I did to launch. Now, one thing that I would do differently is I wouldn't do a worldwide excluding these 4 countries, and I wouldn't do this one either. I would just do one ad set for the one video, and I would target all e-packet countries. And so instead of doing worldwide excluding these countries, I would target all e-packet countries. Now, another thing that I would also do is I would test at least 3 variations of the video. So when I first launched, I was testing only this vid number 1, which was this video, instead of testing 3 variations. Now, I always test 3 variations now because, you can find a creative that performs a lot better than, the first one that you automatically assume is going to be the best ad. And so that can make a whole difference once you start actually scaling your campaigns. And so I would have definitely tested more than just one creative right off the bat here. But I got lucky, and the one that I tested actually performed quite well. But, I would definitely test at least 3. So what I would do is I would post 3 to this page. I would post all 3 different variations to the page. And then I would create one ad set for each. So I would create one ad set, and then I would duplicate it twice. And then there would be 3 ad sets targeting all e-packet countries with no detailed targeting, just English language. And I would have the videos inside. And so that's how I would launch. But in this case, I only had this one ad. As you can see, it was doing quite well for a PPE campaign, excluding the 4 main countries, right? I was getting a lot of engagement. I was getting a lot of reach really cheap. The CPM was 0.16 cents. 16 cents, and this is Canadian dollars. So, that's like 13 cents US. And I actually even got a sale on this ad set on the first day, right? So this was a PPE campaign, and I got a sale. So to me, that was like a huge sign that I was onto something, that I had a product that was going to be a winning product. And so I ran this ad set during the day. I got a lot of video views on it. I got 162,000 people reached. And so that was enough people that I could build a 95% video viewers custom audience from that video right away. And so that's what I did. And I built a 95% video viewers custom audience, and then I built lookalike audiences from that right away as well. And so on that same day, I launched some lookalike audiences. So I created a new campaign, and so optimizing for website conversions. And then I just started testing 95% video viewers lookalike audiences, optimizing for purchase. So just to show you that, so I was also testing some lookalike audiences from Beauty Charcoal. So that's what these BC buyers LTVs are. I started testing lookalike audiences from Beauty Charcoal buyers. Now that didn't work well at all. And so as you can see, I spent money on that, and it just didn't work out at all. All those ad sets, none of them got sales. However, the 95% video viewers, if I sort by the sales, you can see that I got 2 sales from these 95% video viewers ad sets. And so essentially all I was doing is I was testing all these different 95% video viewers lookalike audiences for a lot of different countries. So 95% video viewers, 1%, 1 to 2%, and then 2 to 5%. And I was testing them for the US, for Canada, for the UK, and then I was also doing Denmark, Spain, and France. And so that's a weird selection of countries. If I were to do this again, I would only focus on the US, the UK, Canada, and Australia. But I would do everything else the same. I would just, I would create a new campaign, target with purchase optimization, the 95% video viewers, and then no detailed targeting. And that's all I was doing. I was testing all these different audiences, scaling horizontally. So this was still the first day, right? And I was able to get 2 sales, which is pretty good, even though I was losing money, but I was getting data, and that was my main goal. I just wanted to start getting a lot of data so that I can start testing new lookalike audiences beyond just 95% video viewers. And that was the whole strategy, because with a posture corrector, it's a very broad product, right? And so interests aren't really the way to go. The way to go is to collect data, and then to collect and to create your own audiences, to create your own lookalike audiences that you can target. And so that's exactly what I was doing. I was basically trying to spend as much money as possible to start getting some data, and then to start testing the new lookalike audiences. And so that's what I did. And I think that also on this first day, I got really excited about this product, because even though I was losing money and the return on ad spend was 0.6, I knew that I was onto a winner for sure, because these are all very broad audiences that I was testing. I got a sale on a PP campaign. I was getting sales on my lookalikes when they were just getting started. I started them midday, and I still managed to get some sales. So I knew that I was onto a winner. So what I did is I also scheduled some Instagram posts for the next day. And so I scheduled a few Instagram posts for the next day just to start kickstarting my sales, right? So I probably spent like $100 scheduling some posts for the next day. And all that did is that it got more traffic on my website, it got more sales, more add to carts, and it really just kickstarted the amount of data that I had to work with Facebook. So let me show you the next day. On the 22nd, you can see that my amount spent went up quite significantly, and so did the return on ad spend. So I spent $900 to make back 1.45. And what was I spending on? So I was still spending on this PPE campaign, same thing. I actually increased the budget, and the reason why is that if you have a lot of engagement on your post, Facebook rewards you with lower CPMs. And so I always run PPE campaigns alongside my main campaigns just so I have a lot of engagement and so that I can get lower CPMs. So I was running this PPE campaign, and it was still getting sales. I got 2 sales on that campaign for a return on ad spend of 1.0. So, not a crazy return on ad spend, but still interesting. I wasn't losing too much money with this, and I was getting the engagement, which helps me lower the CPM for my other campaigns. And so the main thing that I was doing is I was still scaling out these lookalike audiences. So if we go to the amount spent, you'll see that the same thing I was still doing is I was just testing all these 95% video viewers, lookalike audiences to a bunch of different countries. So the US, I also tested Brazil, which didn't do so well. Then Canada, the UK, France, Denmark. I was testing all these different countries, Spain. And honestly, if I were to do this again, I would probably focus just on the 4 biggest countries, so the US, the UK, Canada, and Australia, because those are really the ones that you can focus in on and start scaling to, as you'll see later on. Like all these different countries that I was testing, like Denmark, Spain, Brazil, really nothing came out of that. I should have just focused on the US, Canada, UK, and Australia. But if I sort by return on ad spend, you'll see that even at this point, I was getting some great return on ad spends, right? I was able to get 8.7 on this one, 5, 4.3, like 3.9, 3.7. And so I was already getting quite good results just, when I was scaling horizontally. At this point, I wasn't even optimizing. I wasn't killing any ad sets yet. I was just scaling horizontally, trying to spend more money, collect more data. And a lot of these ad sets were performing quite well. And so you can see that I also launched new lookalike audiences. So I started launching website visitors, initiate checkout, buyers. So I already had enough data to test buyers at this point because I had over 100 sales, because I had the sales from the last day, and then I had the sales from that day, from the 22nd, and I had a few sales from the Instagram promotions that I scheduled. And so I had just enough to start testing these buyers lookalikes as well. But if I had more data, they probably would have done better. So I was testing all these different lookalike audiences, and it started working well. Now, on the second day, so on the night of the 22nd, what I did is this is when I started optimizing my ad sets. And so what I did is I looked at the last 2 days of data, so the 21st and the 22nd, and then I sorted by the return on ad spend once again, and I killed anything that was below my break-even return. So anything that was below this break-even return on ad spend, which was 1.6, so anything below here, I turned it off. And so how you know your break-even return on ad spend, you just do the sale price of your product on top of your margin. And so in this case, it was 1.55 approximately. And so anything below 1.6, I would just turn it off. And so the result is that on the next day, if I go to the 23rd, you can see that my return on ad spend went up again. So 1.76 at this point, I was profitable. I was spending profitably on these lookalike audiences. And so this is also when I launched retargeting. And so I launched retargeting. So I launched let's see. So yeah, I had 6 different retargeting ad sets. So I was retargeting Instagram because I started running a few Instagram promotions. So I retargeted people from Instagram, and then I also retargeted view content, initiate checkout, website visitors, and add to cart. And so I'm going to talk more about retargeting in a separate section, but this is when I launched retargeting. And so I was still scaling these lookalike audiences, and that's what was bringing in the majority of the sales. And so let's go into this campaign, see what was happening. So sort by amount spent. So as you can see, I was literally just testing all these different lookalike audiences still. So I was, as soon as I had data to test new lookalike audiences, I would test new ones. So every night, what I would do is I would go and I would kill the ad sets below my break-even return on ad spend in the last few days, and I would create new ad sets with new lookalike audiences that I created every night. And so I would test all these different lookalike audiences, like initiate checkout, view content, buyers, view content again, viewed brace. So this is just view content refined by a URL parameter, website visitors. So you guys get the point. I was really just scaling horizontally, testing all these different lookalike audiences. And you can see a lot of them were doing quite well. And I also started scaling this one. So this is the only ad set that I started scaling horizontally. So I noticed that 95% video viewers, 2 to 5% for the US was doing well. And so I just duplicated that to $200 and it did quite well. So I was able to spend $140 and make back $450. And so I just scaled an ad set that I saw was doing really well over the last few days. I had like two days of data to show that it was a good ad set. And so I duplicated it to $200, didn't turn off the original ad set, and it did well. Now, you'll notice that I did have manual bidding on this ad set. However, that wasn't necessary, to be honest. With a budget of $200, you really don't need a bid cap because it's just not high enough of a budget that Facebook is going to blow through it super quick. So if you have a $200 budget, this bid cap probably didn't make a difference. It was just there. It was because a bid cap is it's the same bidding strategy, right? It's still lowest cost. The only difference is that you set a bid cap of the max you're willing to pay. But I probably the lowest cost bidding strategy probably didn't bid over $30 anyways with a budget of $200. And so I would have gotten these same results probably without a bid cap. But that's what I was doing at this point, really mainly just scaling horizontally, testing all these different audiences. And so let's go on to the next day, to the 24th. And so now the return on ad spend started dipping a little bit, but retargeting was doing quite well. But this, I spent a lot more. So the amount spent went up to, if I go to the 23rd, you see that it was 1.5K, and then massive jump in return on, not in return on ad spend, but in amount spent, almost tripled, well, doubled. Over doubled. So if I go, the main jump was in this campaign. So I deployed a ton of new ad sets. So let's see what I was doing. So at this point, this is when I started scaling a lot of ad sets vertically. So all the ad sets that were doing really well, I duplicated them to higher budgets. So you can see a ton of them had like $200 spent, $100 spent. And so at this point, I was really just taking my best ad sets and then duplicating them to higher budgets. And I was also still testing new lookalike audiences. And so really at this point, all I was doing was testing as many lookalike audiences as possible. So I was testing new countries like New Zealand, Australia, and different new types of lookalike audiences like 95% video viewers, Instagram, all these different lookalike audiences that I could test. So like anything that I could test, I would test it and I would try lookalike audiences for it, like Instagram saves. Let's see if there's any other ones. So no, that's all. But you can see that if I sort by return on ad spend, there was a lot that were doing really well, right? And all I was doing was testing these lookalike audiences to scale my ad spend. And so the result was that my ad spend would increase a lot every day. And every time I would do this and test a bunch of new lookalike audiences, my ad spend would go up a lot, and the return on ad spend would go down because I was scaling horizontally to test all these new ad sets. But then, since my ad spend increases so much, then I can kill everything that's not working, and then that leaves me with still a higher ad spend that I had before, but a higher ROAS, So that's how you scale. You increase the budget a lot and then cut it back down a little bit, and then increase a lot and then cut it back down a little bit, and give and take. And so that's really how I was scaling at this point. And so still running the PPE campaign, and then if I go to the next day, same thing. So the return on ad spend went up. Budget went down a little bit because I started killing the ad sets that weren't doing well, then creating new ones again to test new ad sets. And the PPE, so the PPE at this point, I think I started running a retargeting campaign, a retargeting ad set within the PPE. So I did. So I created a new ad set, retargeting, and so I was retargeting page view 30. So I was retargeting everyone who viewed my pages in the last 30 days with a Facebook post. So this was Facebook only since it was a Facebook post. And as you can see, it was doing a really good return on ad spend, spent $28 to make back $206. And so sometimes when you do retargeting with small audiences, PPE can work really well. And so that's what I was doing just to diversify my retargeting a bit. So I was retargeting with PPE, retargeting here. And then here I was just scaling lookalike audiences, testing all these different lookalike audiences. And so I was duplicating the ones that were doing well at the higher budgets and then testing new ones at lower budgets. And as you can see, the ones at higher budgets weren't performing so hot. But if I sort by return on ad spend, you'll see that there was a lot of the lookalike audiences at smaller budgets, the ones that I was scaling horizontally, those were doing really well. There was a ton above 2.0, there was a ton above 3, there was some, even the 6, 9, 16, and so, a lot of these were performing really well. Like this one right here, top visitors by time spent. This is an extremely underrated lookalike audience. People don't even know about it. You just have to create a top 25% visitors by time spent custom audience, then you can create a lookalike audience, and it'll work a lot better than just view content most of the time. And so yeah, at this point, just testing all these different ad sets, and then at the end of the day, kill all the ones below my break-even return on ad spend in the last few days, just to make sure that I'm taking into account all the data that I have, not just killing an ad set because it performed poorly on one day. And that's how I would optimize, and that's how I was scaling. Now let's go to the next day again. So as you can see on this next day, 5.4K to make back 10.6K. So, it was going really well just by following the simple blueprint of creating a bunch of new ad sets, new lookalike audiences, killing the ones that aren't working, creating more like the ones that are working, and scaling the individual ad sets vertically, scaling vertically the ad sets that have been proven to work. So let's go into here. If we go to amount spent, so you'll see that I have a lot of these higher budget ad sets now, spent 200, a bunch of these spending 200, and they're profitable. And so these ad sets are scaled by grouping. And so that's what I'm going to be talking about the next lesson. I'm going to be talking about how you can scale these ad sets vertically by grouping them. And that's what I was doing here to get these great returns on ad spends, like this one, this one. And I'm going to be talking about that in the next lesson, but I was also just scaling some vertically normal, like this one, the website visitors. This is just one lookalike audience that I duplicated to $200, and it was doing really well. And then again, a bunch of smaller, different lookalike audiences that were just performing well, just scaling them horizontally. And so, I was testing all these different things, and they were doing really well. And that's how I scaled the ad spend so quickly. Just new lookalike audiences every day, testing new lookalike audiences every day, creating a bunch of new ones, killing the ones that weren't working. And that's the blueprint. That's how I increased my ad spend without any interest targeting. And, within a few days, I was able to get to the point where I was spending $5,000 a day and getting back $10,000. And so extremely profitable and extremely simple blueprint, right? All I did was creating new lookalike audiences. I've said it a lot of times now, but I really want you guys to understand, and I hope it makes sense. And so just to recap now, if I go to, the 21st, which was the first day, and then 10 days into the 31st, you can see that in the first 10 days, I was able to scale this brand new store, that it was a completely brand new store. I was able to scale it from $0 to $85,000 in sales with Facebook profitably at a return on ad spend of 1.98. And that, in reality, the return on ad spend was a little bit higher because, like I said before, Facebook doesn't accurately track all conversions. And so the return on ad spend was probably closer to 2.1. And so with this, I was making, 25% profit, 25% profit, and everything was looking really good. And that's what I was doing. And now in the next video, I'm going to talk a little bit more about how I was scaling by grouping, which is a lot of what I did here as well. A lot for these bigger budget ad sets like this one, this one. I'll be talking about that in the next lesson. And also, I'm going to be talking about I'm going to be talking a lot more about this ad account in the next lesson. So just stay tuned. I'm going to be talking a lot more about how I stayed consistent and scaled it beyond these first 10 days. All right, so I just want to quickly recap everything that I just went over so you guys have, a clear blueprint of what I was doing in case the ads manager walkthrough wasn't clear enough. So the first step is PPE. So ideally, you want to test 3 ads right off the bat with PPE. And the main thing that I recommend testing is the first 3 seconds of the video. So right off the bat, you want to test 3 ads with PPE. In the case of Flex Posture, I only tested 1 right off the bat, and that wasn't a good idea. I should have tested 3. So ideally, you want to test 3 right off the bat, and then create a new PPE campaign. Create 3 identical ad sets, 1 for each ad. So if you only have 1 ad, just 1. But if you should have 3, like I said, so 3 identical ad sets, 1 for each ad, and then you target all ePacket countries. And then I'm going to have the list of all ePacket countries below in the description for this video. So all ePacket countries, and then no detailed targeting except that they speak English. And so 1 ad in each ad set, And that's all. So you don't put all ads in just one ad set. You have one ad in each ad set, and then you have 3 ad sets, and then no detailed targeting. And then based on that PPE data, so you want to leave that running for a day or two, depending on how fast you're spending. So, you can put the budget at $10 or $20 a day. And then if you put the budget at $20 a day, one full day should be enough data for you to determine. So you need to spend about $20 to determine which ads are best. Or $10. $10 is fine too. If you spend $10 on each, in total you'll spend $30, and then you'll be fine. And then based on that PPE data, you want to select the best ad. So the one that has the lowest cost per engagement and also, drives the most actions on your website. You want to pick the best ad based on the data and then build a 95% video viewers custom audience from it. And then from that 95% video viewers custom audience, you want to create lookalike audiences for the US, Canada, the UK, and Australia from 1%, 1 to 2%, and 2 to 5%. And then you want to create a new website conversions campaign and then test all of those. So for those 4 countries and then 3 for each. So that's 12 ad sets right there. And then that's how you want to start launching your purchase optimization campaigns. Now at this point, if you have data from Instagram influencers, you can also start testing all the other lookalike audiences. So you can test Instagram engagement, and assuming that you've already gotten traffic and a few sales, you can test VC, you can test add to cart, you can test maybe initiate checkout, and also purchase if you've gotten 100 or 200 sales already. Now same idea, you want to test for the US, the UK, Canada, Australia, 1%, 1 to 2%, 2 to 5%. All optimizing for purchases. And now if you really want to start kickstarting your product like I did for Flex Posture, then it's a good idea to run Instagram influencers when you're first starting out, just to kickstart and start getting more data so that you can scale your lookalike audiences faster. And so at this point, all you're doing is you're testing all the different lookalike audiences that you can and scaling horizontally that way. And then you can also test some lesser known lookalike audiences that a lot of people don't know about. So top 5% or top 25% visitors by time spent. View content with a frequency parameter. So I call that VC2X. And then you can also test Instagram saves. So people who've saved your content on Instagram. And that's if you have done some Instagram influencers. You're going to have a lot of Instagram saves. And that audience is usually good to build lookalike audiences from. So just to show you, if I go inside here, the highest return on ad spend audience for this period, for the July 21st to July 21st to the 31st, the highest return on ad spend one was this top visitors by time spent, top 5% visitors by time spent, right? So it's an audience that not a lot of people know about, not a lot of people test, but I was able to get a 3.44 return on ad spend on this audience. Now another one that's lesser known was this one that I was telling you about, the view content with the frequency parameter. So this audience, this custom audiences, VC2X, what it is it's a view content audience, but only people who viewed content twice in the period. So if I do view content in the last 30 days, refined by the frequency parameter of 2X, that means that they're only going to be people who viewed content twice in the last 30 days. And this is easy to do as well. When you create the lookalike audience, you just need to click refine by frequency and then greater or equal than 2. And so that's another one that not a lot of people test. And by testing all these lesser known lookalike audiences, you can scale horizontally even faster. And that's what I was doing. I was testing all these weird, lookalike audiences that not a lot of people test, and all the basic ones as well, like video viewers, view content, add to cart, purchase, Instagram saves. And so that's how you can really start scaling horizontally. Now, optimization. Every day you want to look at the past 3 days of data and then kill every ad set below your break-even return on ad spend. So every night, when you create some new audiences, you also want to look at the last 3 days of data, including that day, and kill all the audiences that are below your break-even return on ad spend. And that's how you're going to ensure that your return on ad spend keeps getting better, right? That you're not spending money on ad sets that are unprofitable. Now, if you have an ad set that doesn't have 3 days of data yet, but it's clear that it's not a good audience, you can also kill that too. So if you spent like $10 on an ad set and you only got like 2 clicks, it's pretty obvious that it's not a good ad set. And so you can just kill that ad set too. You don't have to wait 3 days because you're just going to waste money. But, if for example, you have an ad set that you spent $10 on and it's getting a good amount of clicks and a few add to carts but no sales, I wouldn't kill that just yet because that could just be a bad day. And so, so kill every ad set below your break-even ROAS in the last 3 days, including that day. And then simplified break-even ROAS formula. So if you don't know how to calculate your break-even return on ad spend, You just do the selling price on your website over the selling price minus the cost, so the selling price over the margin. And this is a simplified formula because it doesn't take into account the fees, and it also doesn't take into account all your other expenses like hiring virtual assistants and other expenses that you might have in generating content, things like that. So it's not it's a simplified formula, but it's good enough to use to optimize. So you want to know what your break-even ROAS is, and then anything below it you want to kill that. And then you want to scale horizontally, like I said. So every day you want to create as many new lookalike audiences as possible. And so make audiences similar to what's already working. You can test new countries. You can test new source audiences, like I said, so you can test these lesser known lookalike audiences instead of testing the basic ones. And every day you want to create as many as possible and consistently create new audiences. And so you can set a goal. I'm going to create 5 or 10 lookalike audiences every day to start scaling horizontally. And the goal is to consistently increase your ad spend by finding new profitable audiences. And so that's the general launch strategy, guys. I hope it makes sense. And in the next lesson, I'm going to be talking more about the scaling by grouping strategy that I was showing you a quick overview of. And that one really helps you increase your ad spend to the next level as well by focusing in on some of the lookalike audiences that are shown to work really well. So I'll see you guys in the next lesson. All right, everyone. So in this lesson, I'm going to be talking about how to scale lookalike audiences by grouping. And I'm going to be showing you 2 different strategies that you can use and then taking you inside the FlexPosture ad account to show you real examples. So the first strategy consists in identifying up to 3 countries that are bringing a lot of sales profitably. And you can do this by breaking down your campaign data by country and see which countries are performing the best. So during the product launch strategy, what I was doing was essentially just creating a ton of new lookalike audiences, different lookalike audiences to different countries. And so if you go out of that campaign and you break down by the countries, that gives you an overview of which countries are working the best for lookalike audiences. And so that's what you want to do. And if you structured your lookalike audiences by country, like if you structured your campaigns by country, so you have one country per campaign and then you have the lookalike audiences for that country inside that campaign, then you can just look at the campaign data overall and see which countries are performing the best for lookalike audiences. So you want to identify up to 3 countries that are bringing in a lot of sales profitably. Now, once you do that, you want to create new lookalike audiences for those countries together. So basically combine those countries in one lookalike audience to get larger audiences. And once you do that, you can start with higher budgets and that helps you scale more. Now, the reason why this works well is that Facebook doesn't, respond that well to scaling smaller-ish audiences. So, if you can scale lookalike audiences for the US because the US has a very large population, right? Even if you have a 1% lookalike audience for the US, that's like 2 million people. But if, for example, one of your most profitable countries is Canada or the UK or Australia, the audiences are a lot smaller. And so if you want to scale those audiences, you need to group them. And so that's what this strategy is about. Now, the second strategy is to identify 3 individual lookalike audiences that have a similar cost per purchase. So instead of looking just at the countries, now you want to look at the individual lookalike audiences and identify groups of 3 to 5 lookalike audiences that have a similar cost per purchase and that you want to scale. Now, when you identify those, you can create a new ad set and then stack all the lookalike audiences to create a larger audience. And then once again, you can start that with higher budgets and Facebook should respond better to that when you start scaling those by grouping it. Now, the reason why they need to have a similar cost per purchase is that if you have different audiences that don't have a similar cost per purchase within your audience, so let's say you try to group an audience that has like a $5 cost per purchase with an audience that has a $10 cost per purchase, Facebook will not be able to optimize its bid strategy properly, right? Because for half of the audience, it only needs to bid $5, and for the other half, it needs to bid $10. And so you want to group those that have a similar cost per purchase so that Facebook can really optimize its bidding strategy, and that way you'll be able to scale that ad set very well. And so let me show you some examples now. So this is the FlexPosture ad account, and this date range right here is the first 10 days that I was showing you during the launch video. So now, what I did here is I sorted by the amount spent. So this right here was the lookalike audience campaign that I was scaling horizontally. So what I did is I'm just gonna break it down by country. So break down and then country, and then now I can see which countries are performing the best. So it's clear that the countries that we were spending the most on was the United States, UK, and Canada. But clearly, the United Kingdom and Canada provided a much better return on ad spend. And so that tells me that I should, create more I could group United Kingdom and Canada to create larger audiences and scale them. And so that's exactly what I did. So now if I go a bit further in data to show you what I did next, so let's say from the 21st to the 31st, and let's clear this breakdown and go inside the campaign, and then let's see what brought in the most sales during that period. So as you can see, the one that brought in the most sales is exactly that. So it's an audience that I created, grouping those two countries, so Canada and Great Britain. So I made a new lookalike audience for those two countries. Now this one is 5 to 10%. So I think I was testing 2%, 2 to 5%, and then 5 to 10%. And since this, the Flex Posture Store was a very general product, these large audiences did work quite well. So this audience right here, like I said, I just grouped Canada and the UK, and then I put a budget of $240. Now, I did also have a manual bidding cap. However, this is not necessary, but it doesn't hurt either. So the way that manual bidding works is that it's the same strategy as if you don't have manual bidding. So it's the same lowest cost strategy. But the idea of manual bidding is to prevent from overspending too quick. And so the only time you really need manual bidding is if you have an extremely large budget, right? Like if you have a budget of $500 or $1,000 or $2,000 a day, and you don't want Facebook to just blow through it inefficiently, that's when you should use manual bidding. And so at a budget of $200, the bid cap really doesn't do anything as long as it's high enough. So most of my bid caps were about 2 to 3 times my target cost per purchase. And so having a bid cap like that doesn't really affect your ad set when you have a budget of $200, right? Because it's just going to keep spending regardless. But the only way that having a bid cap could really affect your performance at this budget is if you had a bid cap that was really low. So let's say I put a bid cap of like $15, then I would get totally different performance because it would have a hard time even spending my budget. And so, all these audiences have bid caps, but you don't have to worry too much about that because if I didn't have bid caps on this, the performance would likely be very, very similar. So as you can see, most of my top audiences here were these grouped lookalike audiences. So another one here, Instagram saves for Canada and the UK together. And, this is an audience of 3.1 million people, right? So that helps me I was able to scale that more, and I was able to spend $5,000 on this audience in that period at a great return on ad spend. Now, if you look at this one, I did narrow this one by age range. So this one was narrowed down by 25 to 44 years old. And so I probably determined that was the age range that was performing the best for this lookalike audience. However, I would not recommend that you narrow down your lookalike audiences by age range. That's something that I learned over time as well. It really doesn't make that big of a difference. So when you're using lookalike audiences, you can just use the lookalike audience as is. Narrowing down your lookalike audiences by an age range doesn't make that much of a difference because lookalike audiences already uses like age range. It's part of determining its targeting, right? And so it just doesn't make that big of a difference. Like as you can see, this one isn't narrowed down, this one isn't narrowed down, and it did just as well. And it's the exact same strategy. So this one is Instagram saves 2%. And once again, I grouped Canada and Great Britain to get a larger audience. And then I started that at a higher budget. And so that was the general strategy. Now another one here, viewed brace, so like a view content lookalike, UK, Canada. And yeah, so that was basically the overall strategy, the strategy number 1 that I was talking about. Now to show you the strategy number 2, here is an example of that. So what I did with this ad set here is I found these three audiences here that I was testing, at lower budgets, so probably around $50 a day during the launch phase. I noticed that these ad sets were all converting well, so they had a low cost per purchase, and they all had a similar cost per purchase. So what I did is I grouped them all into one ad set, and then I increased the budget. And so I put a budget of $200, and I put a bid cap of 2 to 3 times the target cost per purchase, and that's what I did. And so this gave me a larger audience of 1 million people, which isn't that large, but it's large enough that I can scale it a little bit more. because if I just have a lookalike audience for like a 1% lookalike audience for Canada, that would be like 200,000 people or something, and so it would be really hard to scale that audience. And so when you group them like this, you can scale it a bit more. And so that one did well. And that's basically what I was doing at this point. I was just I was grouping lookalike audiences to scale them, and then the ones that already had a large audience, like the United States ones, for example, this add to cart one, this one's already okay. Well, it says fewer than 1,000 people, but this is a 1% lookalike audience for the US. So this is 2.1 million people. So when you have audiences like this, you don't need to group them unless you're trying to spend like $1,000, $2,000 a day on them. And so this grouping strategy is for it's mainly for countries with smaller populations. So pretty much any other country than the United States, you can use the grouping strategy and it'll work well. So yeah, I mean that's overall what I was doing at this point, and yeah, I hope this was insightful, guys, and I'll see you guys in the next lesson. All right, so in this lesson, I'm going to be talking about vertical scaling methods for Facebook ads. In this module, I'm going to be showing you my ads manager for Flex Posture quite a bit, and you're going to see that there's a lot of different budgets on my ad sets, and I wanted to clarify how I vertically scale my ad sets, just so that you guys understand for the rest of the videos inside of this module. Because there's no clear blueprint on how you want to scale ad sets vertically. There's different ways that you can do it, and a lot of people have different methods, and so I want to explain the thought process that I go through when I vertically scale my audiences. So first off, when should you vertically scale, and what does vertically scaling even, what does that even mean? So horizontal scaling is when you test a lot of different audiences without increasing the budget of a single audience too much. Vertical scaling is when you go all in on one audience, and so you increase the budget for one audience. And so when do you want to vertically scale? Well, you want to vertically scale if you've identified a profitable audience and you want to get the most out of it. And so by that, I mean that, there's an audience that you've been targeting at a lower budget for a few days and you're getting consistent results, and now you have enough data and you've made the decision that this is a good audience to target. That's when you should vertically scale and start increasing the budget. And that's that's really how you scale with Facebook ads, is you start vertically scaling your profitable audiences. And so I'd recommend audiences of at least a million people or more to scale vertically. Smaller than that, you're going to have a hard time scaling a lot. As you start scaling, the cost per result is going to go up quite a lot unless you have a larger audience. And so one thing that you can do is, if your audience is smaller than 1 million, you can group the audiences by cost per purchase. And this is something that I talked about in the scaling by grouping video. And so that's what you can do here. You can scale by grouping to vertically scale, right? Because you want to have larger audiences when you scale vertically. Now, another thing I put here is that I'd recommend getting at least 10 results from an audience before scaling vertically. So if you're optimizing for purchases, you're trying to get purchases, I would recommend getting at least 10 purchases before determining that this is a good audience, right? So like, for example, if you're running at $10 a day and your cost per purchase is $10, then you will need to wait at least 10 days. And then over those 10 days, you will need to be profitable and everything looks good, and then you can scale vertically. Otherwise, if you scale an audience vertically just because you got 1 or 2 sales, that's not enough. That's not enough data. It's not reliable. And so once you scale vertically, there's a good chance that you're just going to waste money, because that wasn't really a good audience. You just got lucky with that audience that specific day. And so when you increase the budget, it all averages out, and then you don't get the same results. And so I would recommend at least getting 10 results, and preferably more. And this is partly, this is part of the reason why I personally start with larger budgets. I usually start with $50 ad sets. It's just so that you can get results faster and you can get reliable data and make reliable decisions. And so yeah, I would recommend at least 10 results, preferably more than that, but 10 I would say is the bare minimum. So now I'm going to talk about the different methods of scaling vertically. So the first one is just increasing the budget without duplicating, just editing the budget. Now, this works well if you want to scale slow and steadily and you're patient. So you're not trying to blow up your ad account super aggressively. You just want to scale slow and steadily. What you can do is you can just increase the budget of your ad sets 20 to 30%, depending on how aggressive you want to be, every 2 days. Now, you could even go as high as like 40%, but it's better to be conservative, in my opinion, with the strategy. So you can increase the budget 20 to 30% every 2 days, as long as the audience is profitable. And this will give you slow and steady scaling, really gradual scaling. This is a great way to do it. And when you're doing this, you don't want to play with the budget too often. Like if you increase the budget and then the next day the performance drops a bit, don't panic, just let it run for another day, and then based on those 2 days, you can make a decision. And when you're looking at the data, look at least at 3 days of data when you're making these decisions, so that you don't just don't make decisions based on just like one day. Look at least at a few days so that you can actually get a good picture of what results that ad set is bringing you, right? Because some days ad sets are going to perform well, some days they're going to perform bad. And so what you're really looking for is the average of the performance over, a few days. So usually I'll look at the last 3-4 days, sometimes even 5 days, when I decide, when I'm looking to kill ad sets and make decisions about which ad sets to scale. And so this strategy of just increasing the budget slow and steadily is in my opinion, it works the best for small audiences. So if you have, small lookalike audiences, of like 100,000 people, or, audiences like interests of like 300,000, 500,000 people, increasing the budget slow and steadily can work well. And you can figure out the max budget that you can vertically scale to gradually. You don't just duplicate the higher budgets. You can just gradually keep scaling it until you see the performance start declining, and then that's where you can leave the budget. So that's one way to do it. Now, the other way is duplication. Now, duplication is when you want to scale more aggressively. And so, if you're running an ad at like $5 a day and then you want to quickly increase the budget to $20 a day or $50 a day, that's when you duplicate. And so what I'll typically do is I'll start at $50 and then I'll duplicate right away to $200 if it's profitable, based on, I need to get at least 10 results, like I said before. And at least 10 results, and usually I'll wait for more than 10 results. So, I'll make sure that it's a good audience, and then I'll duplicate it. So I'll start at 50, then I'll go to 200, and then I'll go to 500 with manual bidding. Now, depending on your budget, you can change the strategy. So you could go, from $5 to 20 to 50. The daily budget that you start out with really doesn't matter. The only difference is how many results you're going to get. So, depending on your budget, you can make the strategy your own. And you can keep the original ad sets running if the audience is big. Otherwise, you can pause the original ad set to avoid overlap. And so, if you're running at high budgets and the audience is smaller than like 1 million people, then you would probably want to turn off the original ad set to avoid overlap. But if you have an audience of like 100 million people or 50 million people, realistically, you can duplicate a lot and you're not going to get audience overlap because the audience is so big. And so, that's what you can do with duplicating, and it's really for scaling aggressively. Like I said, if you want to be conservative and scale slow and steadily, then I would just recommend increasing budgets 20 to 30% every 2 days. But if you want to scale aggressively and you want to collect data fast, and that the product that you're trying to scale is a winner, and you can duplicate. And that's what I was doing with Flex Posture. I was duplicating mainly. I wasn't doing much increasing budgets. But with some of the new projects that I'm working on with my new brand, I'm doing a little bit more increasing when I'm trying to get slow and steady growth. So you really have to decide what you're trying to achieve here. So just another important detail about the duplication scaling method. So sometimes when your audiences will be profitable at an X budget, but not at Y. So for example, if you're testing audiences at $50 and you have an audience that's super profitable at $50 budget, but then when you try to duplicate it to $200, it stops working. It stopped being profitable. In that case, just leave it at X. So, with that example, just leave the audience at $50. And one thing you can do is you can just duplicate that audience a bunch of times and leave it at $50. And so you can scale horizontally that way instead of trying to scale vertically. Because sometimes, it just won't work if the budget's too high and you won't be able to vertically scale the ad set. So, if it's not working, then just don't force it and just scale horizontally instead. Now, one tip is the bigger the audience, the more you'll be able to scale one ad set vertically. So if you have, an audience with like a few million people, you should be able to scale to, at least 500 a day or more in budget. And so one thing that you can do to achieve these bigger audiences is you can scale by grouping. And I talked about this in the last video. But, if you're trying to scale to like the United States, for example, what you could do is you could take 3 or 4 lookalike audiences with a similar cost per purchase and then stack them into one ad set, which will give you a large audience. And then you can increase the budget quite significantly and see if that works. And so that's one good tip. Now, the last thing I want to talk about in this presentation is manual bidding. So manual bidding is great for large budgets and aggressive scaling. So when you really want to scale aggressively, so usually I'll recommend having a budget of at least $500 a day or more to use manual bidding. Now, in the Flex Posture case study, I was using manual bidding with budgets of $200 a day. And I don't do this anymore because I've realized that it really doesn't make a difference. So what you need to understand about manual bidding is that it's lowest cost with a bid cap. So it's not like a target cost. Whatever price you're putting as a bid cap, Facebook's not gonna try to get you that cost. It's the same bidding strategy as if you don't put a bid cap. So everything's gonna be the same. The only difference is that if you have a really large budget and Facebook is trying to spend it, very quickly because if you have a budget of $1,000 a day, Facebook is gonna need to spend a lot of your budget every hour. And so it's going to start bidding really aggressively, more aggressively than it would bid if it were just at a smaller budget. And so that's where the bid cap comes in. You can say, hey, I want you to spend a lot of money, so I'm going to give you a high budget, but don't bid too aggressively to spend the budget. So, if you can only spend $500 out of my $1,000 budget, that's okay, because I don't want you to bid higher than this. And that's how the bid cap works. And so when you have like a $200 budget, a $200 daily budget, Facebook doesn't really need a bid cap. You can just do lowest cost, and it probably won't even go higher than your bid. And so you can use a bid cap, and usually the only time that it's useful if you're using a bid cap with lower budgets is if you're really trying to squeeze the lowest cost per purchase possible. So if you put a really low bid cap, and Facebook is just not going to spend a lot on that audience, but sometimes you'll be able to get a few sales. And so that's one way you can do it as well. But what I like doing is starting manual bidding at $500 budget, and then increasing the budget 20 to 30% every 2 days, just increasing, not duplicating. And that's what I'll do. And I'll start the bid cap higher than my cost per purchase. So let's say my cost per purchase is $10. I'll start it at $20 to $30, maybe in the middle, so like 25. And then I'll start lowering it as much as possible without slowing down the delivery. So at the start, when you put it 2 to 3 times higher, Facebook should be able to spend your budget quite fast. It'll just be able to spend and bid quite high on your audiences. And so what you want to do is you want to gradually lower the bid cap as much as possible without seeing slowing down in the delivery. So if you start, as you start lowering the bid cap, Facebook will spend your budget slower. And so you want to keep lowering it as much as possible without, Facebook completely stopping the delivery and, almost not spending on your ad set anymore. And so this takes practice, but basically you want to find the sweet spot where, you have the lowest bid cap possible with Facebook still spending all of your budget. So that's what manual bidding is all about. And like I said, it's really not that necessary with a $200 daily budget. I would recommend at least having a $500 daily budget to use manual bidding. Now, the last thing is that you need to note that changing the bid cap doesn't affect the optimization. And so that's why you can just play around and keep lowering it. You can change the bid cap all the time. It won't affect the optimization. It'll just affect, the bid cap when Facebook is bidding on that audience. So that's it for this quick presentation. Now, I just want to show you some examples from Flex Posture, and then that'll be it. So for Flex Posture, I was mainly duplicating. So if I go to this is the lifetime spent, and if I go to the amount spent, I selected the 2 cold traffic campaigns here to show you what I was spending the most on. And if I go to amount spent, you'll see that most of these ad sets were at a $200 daily budget. So you can see that, most of these are $200 daily budget. And that's the point at which these ads were performing the best. A lot of them I tried to scale to like 500. So for example, this one I duplicated to 500, and you can see, well, this one actually did quite well. 1.8 was still profitable, so that was okay. And so I left it running. But in a lot of the cases, I would try to duplicate higher than $200 a day, and it would stop working well. Like this one, I duplicated this one to 750. And as you can see, it took quite a hit, and so I had to turn that off. And so, most of these were running at $200 a day, because at $500 a day, I would start seeing a significant decline in the performance. Some of them you can see are at like 240, 260. And so those are ad sets that I scaled by increasing the budget by 20 to 30%. And so like I said, it really depends on the situation, which scaling method you're going to use. And to be honest, ad accounts kind of like behave differently to different scaling methods as well. And so it's kind of like a guessing game. You just have to test what works for you. And based on the situation, based on how aggressive you're trying to scale. So aggressive scaling, I would duplicate. Slow and steady scaling, I would just increase the budget. And as you can see, there's all different types of budgets. Like some of them are 200, some of them are 500, 250, 500. You can see this one at 500. Again, the performance declined quite significantly, right? So that's the main thing that I was trying to show you with, by taking you into the ads manager quickly, is just to show you that I have all these different budgets. And most of them were just at $200, because that's the point at which I was able to scale them without seeing a decline in my return on ad spend. So that's it for this quick lesson. I hope it was helpful, and I'll see you in the next one. All right, so in this lesson, I'm going to be talking about retargeting with Facebook ads and how to set up a proper retargeting funnel. And then I'm going to be taking you into the Flex Posture ad account to show you how I did the retargeting for Flex Posture. So let's get right into it. So first off, top of funnel retargeting. These are the people that haven't been on your website yet, haven't taken any actions, but have still seen you on social media. Now, these won't always be profitable, but if they are, you're in luck, because these are the biggest audiences, hence why it's the top of the funnel. So if you can get these ad sets to be, if you can get these audiences to be profitable, then you're going to be able to spend a lot on retargeting profitably, and which is, always the goal. So these audiences include 95% video viewers, 75% video viewers, and people who've engaged with your social profiles. Now, the way that I like to set this up is I like to target people who've, in the last 7 days. So, this window, you can really choose it based on, how long you think it'll take to get a sale. So some people like to do 3 days. I like to do 7 days. And so what I like to do is I'll target 95% video viewers in the last 7 days, but you also need to exclude some people. Now, a lot of people forget to exclude people. And the reason why you need to exclude people is that you don't want to have any audience overlap. You're going to have a lot of different retargeting audiences that you're targeting. You don't want to have any audience overlap between all those audiences, because if you do, you're going to be bidding against yourself. And these audiences are quite small. And so, bidding against yourself can really drive up the cost per purchase. So what you want to do is you want to have a 95% video viewers audience and then exclude website visitors in the last 7 days, because these people are going to be targeted. You're going to be targeting those people by themselves. Now, same thing here, 75% video viewers in the last 7 days. You also want to exclude the website visitors in the last 7 days, but you also want to exclude the 95% video viewers. The reason why is that if someone's watched 95% of the video, then they've obviously watched at least 75%, right? And so all the 95% video viewers here are also in this audience. So this audience is a subset of this larger audience. And so therefore you need to, if you want to avoid the overlap, you need to exclude that 95% video viewers audience from the 75% video viewers audience. And so by doing that, you actually have two audiences without overlap of some people that have watched 95% and then people who have watched 75%. But 75% up to 95%, and then 95% is a separate audience by itself. And so by properly excluding like this, you can actually see what the cost per purchase is for someone who's watched 95% of the video versus 75%. Now, you also want to target Instagram and Facebook engagement. Now there's custom audiences for that, and Instagram engagement was one of the best audiences for Flex Posture. So you definitely want to test all these audiences. Facebook engagement did not convert as well for Flex Posture, but Instagram engagement converted extremely well. Now, again, for these audiences, you want to exclude website visitors in the last 7 days because we're targeting those by themselves. And so for each of these audiences, for each of these ad sets, you want to have multiple video ads and multiple ads in general, just to avoid people seeing the same ads over and over again. People don't like seeing the same ads over and over again. And so by having multiple ads in each ad set, you're going to let Facebook optimize it for you and deliver different ads to people accordingly. And so that works great. And that's how I do it. I'll usually have 5 or more ads in each retargeting ad set. And when I create new creatives, I'm always going to just add them to the retargeting ad sets and see if it converts well. Now, another thing that can work really well for these top of funnel audiences is photo testimonials. And that's something that I used for Flex Posture, and that worked really well. People who are at the top of funnel, have you seen your ads but haven't really taken any actions on your website? One big reason for that is because they don't really trust your product or they don't trust your brand. And so by having these testimonials, it can really increase the trust and get them to take that next step with your brand. Now, bottom of funnel, these are people who have actually taken actions on your website but haven't bought yet. And so these are the most profitable audiences in terms of return on ad spend. So once again, I like targeting in the last 7 days for all of these. And so I'll do website visitors in the last 7 days, add to cart in the last 7 days, and then initiate checkout in the last 7 days. Now, to avoid overlap, once again, you need to exclude the level down, right? Because anyone who's added to cart in the last 7 days has also visited the website in the last 7 days. And so, and vice versa, right? Anyone who's initiated checkout in the last 7 days has also added to cart because they need to add to cart before initiating checkout. And so to avoid all this overlap between your audiences, you need to exclude. And so this one, the way that you can do it is website visitors in the last 7 days, excluding people who've added to cart, add to cart in the last 7 days, excluding people who've initiated checkout, and then initiated checkout, excluding people who've actually purchased. That way you're not going to have any overlap, and then you can actually see what each of these audiences, what the cost per purchase is for each of those audiences, and you can scale them accordingly. Now, again, you want to have many different ads in each ad set. Video ads work great, but image ads also work great. For the lower you get in the funnel, the better image ads tend to work because, at this point, people have already seen a lot of your video ads and, they know what you're selling. They've already shown interest in it. They kind of just need a nudge, a bump, or, a special discount or something to convince them to purchase. And so, one thing you can do is you can offer discounts at this point to help convert those visitors. Now, I didn't do that for Flex Posture, and I don't usually do that. I prefer to offer discounts later on, and that's what I'm going to talk about next. So after 7 days, so right now all this retargeting that we've been doing has been in a 7-day period. So what happens to the people who go through that 7-day period and see a bunch of our ads, and then they don't decide to take any actions, and they just, they get left behind. And so these are people who've visited the website in the last 30 days, excluding people who've visited the website in the last 7 days. Now these people, if we don't retarget them, they're just going to be gone forever. So the way that I see it, it's kind of like you have one more chance to convince them to come back and make a purchase and bring them back into your funnel. So these people, this is where I'll usually offer a discount. And so so with this audience, I'll usually offer them a special discount. We're running low on stock. Are you still interested? Finish your, get it 20% off today with this coupon or something like that. And if you offer them a special discount, maybe you'll be able to convert these people that, slipped through your funnel. So that's the general idea for a retargeting funnel. This is the way that I set up my retargeting funnels for my new brands. For the way that I did it for Flex Posture was a bit different. And so I think this way is much better. So, I would recommend that you follow this strategy, but I'm going to show you what I did for Flex Posture regardless. So this was my retargeting campaign. And as you can see, I have a lot of ad sets here. Instagram engagement, website visitors, view content, initiate checkout, Instagram engagement in the US, video viewers, a ton of video viewers, audiences, add to cart, more video viewers, initiate checkout, 30 days, add to cart, 30 days. So I tested all different kinds of things, but let's see what actually brought in the most results. So one of them that I could spend a lot of money on was this Instagram engagement ad set. So this was Instagram engagement in the last 30 days, I believe. And so I was able to spend quite a bit on this audience. And let's see. So the ads that were performing the best were video ads, right? So these are all video ads, and those are the ones that brought the most sales. Now there's also a testimonial here that did quite well, 2.56 return on ad spend. We can check that out. That's just a typical testimonial. And that really helps build trust. So, those audiences converted very well. Now, I have a ton of website visitors, view content. Now, nowadays, I would not split website visitors and view content because the difference between those two audiences is like non-existent. There's like a 2 or 3% difference between the two. And so if you just target website visitors, that includes all of, view content. And there's really no difference in terms of the value of that audience. And so you can just not target view content and just focus only on website visitors because all of those view contents are going to be included in the website visitors. And so as you can see here, I was doing 30 days. Nowadays, I would do 7. 30 days isn't optimal. And so I think I could have gotten a much better return on ad spend if I did 7 days and then I targeted people after that with this after 7 days thing and offered them a special discount. I think I could have gotten a better return on ad spend. So that's one thing that I've learned. Now, 95% video viewers, this audience was also quite profitable. And so as you can see, once again, this one actually had image ads performing the best. So this post right here was the one that performed the best. And so these are people who have already seen my video ad, right? So they've already kind of been sold on the product, and now this is kind of just nudging them to get it. And so I'm playing on the urgency and the limited stock, right? Our best-selling posture corrective brace is finally back in stock. Get it while it's still 50% off. Now the testimonial, once again, that was converting well. And so these, you really want to test as many ads as possible. As you can see, all of these ad sets have like pretty much like 10 or more ads in them. And so that's really what you want to do for retargeting. You want to show a lot of different ads to avoid people seeing the same thing over and over again. Now let's check out the initiate checkout audience. This is one of the most profitable audiences. And as you can see, so this video was performing quite well for initiate checkout. So you really don't know what's going to convert well for a specific audience. And that's why if you just put a bunch of ads in an ad set and you let Facebook optimize it, that usually works quite well. And so this video ad worked great. And then this one, this same post again, the same post with the urgency and limited stock. This post converted great as well. And so you guys get the idea. Retargeting is not that complicated. You just want to make sure that you're avoiding overlap. Now, how do you scale these audiences? That's also a good question. What I would recommend that you do is that once you start getting consistent sales, so let's say about 20 sales a day or like 10, 15 sales a day, that's when you can start setting up retargeting just to maximize your profits. Now, when you first set up all these ad sets, this is exactly what I would set up. I would recommend you set up all these ad sets. And then you could run all of them at like $5 a day or something, or $10 a day, and see what happens. And then you can scale based on the profitability. So if you have a good return on ad spend, that's a great sign, and then you can scale. And you can also keep an eye on the frequency. The frequency tells you how many times people have seen your ads. And so if the frequency is super low, let's say the frequency is 1.0, which was that's the minimum it can be. So if you have a frequency of 1.00 and you have a really good cost per result and return on ad spend, then you know that you can really scale that retargeting audience. And so what I'll usually do is I'll just scale it, about 30% every 2 days, as long as the frequency and the return on ad spend looks good. So that's it for this lesson on retargeting. I hope it was helpful, and I'll see you guys in the next one. All right, everyone. So in this lesson, I'm going to be showing you how to create winning video ads for Facebook and create your own original content and basically find winning video ads. And I'm going to be showing you exactly how I did it for Flex Posture. So let's get right into it. So first off, why video ads? Well, video ads are pretty much the most effective for targeting cold traffic who don't know your brand. For most products too, most winning products, you kind of need an explanation, and a video really gives you a good opportunity to sell someone on a product versus just an image, right? And so the best way to explain most of these winning products is with video content. Now, another big benefit of using video content is that you can retarget people who watch the video. So you can retarget based on the percentage of the video watched, and using those audiences, you can create funnels and get that warm traffic and then convert them to hot traffic and convert them to buyers. And so video ad funnels are really effective on Facebook. Now, what are the characteristics of a good ad? Well, a good ad is fast-paced and it has captions on screen. So pretty much every ad that you see is like this. So it's fast-paced, captions on screen, and it's modeled after regular viral videos on Facebook. So the type of video that genuinely goes viral on Facebook that your uncle shared and stuff, that's where you should be getting your inspiration from. That's what your ads should look like. And so that's really the goal. You want it to make it look like it's not an ad and it just looks like a regular viral video. And those are the ads that are going to perform the best by far. Now, another characteristic of a great ad is having a good scroll stopper. Now, what is a scroll stopper? A scroll stopper is the first few seconds of the video that really grabs your attention and stops you from scrolling, because most people are on their phones scrolling super fast. You need to grab their attention, so you need a good scroll stopper. Now, lastly, a good ad identifies a problem that the audience has and then offers the solution, and this is key. Now, that's pretty much what I like to call the cut and band-aid method. And this is kind of the main idea that I follow with my ads is you want to cut the audience and then offer them the band-aid. So basically tell them what the problem is and make them realize that they have this problem, and then you offer them the solution. So that's why I like to call it cut and band-aid. So in the first 3 to 5 seconds of your video, you want to identify the problem and identify the solution offered by your product. And so the start of your video is the cut that's going to make your audience relate to that problem, and then your product is presented as an easy solution. And this is a very effective way to sell products online with this cut and band-aid method. And it's very effective, and that's why I like to focus on products that solve a problem, because with products that solve a problem, you can use this method. Now, how do you get content made? Once you find a winning product, so I just showed you the launch of that Facebook ads account for Flex Posture. So in the first 10 days, I had spent, $40,000 and made back $80,000 or something like that. At that point, I knew that was a winning product, right? It's pretty obvious at that point that it's a winning product. So right away, you shouldn't just be proud of yourself. What you should do is you should think about the next move, because the ad that I was scaling during those first 10 days, I knew that it was only going to last so long before it got fatigued, before too many people started copying it, etc., and before it stopped performing. And what do you know? It did. It stopped working well after, a month or two. So right away, I thought, okay, what am I going to do? I'm going to create new content to make sure that when that ad does stop working well, I'm ready. And so how do you get content made? The best place, in my opinion, is Fiverr. There's a bunch of people who, they're trying to make money, and you just have to look for gigs of people that are willing to film themselves and record a video for you. It doesn't necessarily need to be an e-commerce product video gig. You can look video model. You can type in pretty much anything you want, and then you just send them a message and you tell them what you need. And I'm going to show you a few examples of what I did for Flex Posture, and that's exactly what I did. I messaged people on Fiverr, and that's how I got the content made, and then I used that content to make the ads that eventually helped me scale, to multiple 6 figures and eventually to 7 figures. Now, another way you can do it is you can reach out to small influencers. Influencers are very experienced at making content, and so you can just message them, say, hey, I don't even need you to post this on your feed. All I want is you to help me make an ad for this product. So I'm just going to send you a product for free. You get to keep the product, record this video, and I'll pay you, $50. You work out a deal like that. Or if your product is actually really cool, you could offer just the product for free, and maybe they'll do it, in exchange for the product. And so that's another way to get content made. Now, make sure to have a clear description of what you want to record. This is also really important. I'm going to show you examples of this shortly. But yeah, you can't put your trust in their ability to make a good video. You have to tell them exactly what you want them to do so that you can apply this cut and band-aid method that I was telling you about. Now, I make all my ads using Animoto. I already showed you an example of that in a previous module, and I'm going to show you more examples of that in this lesson. But basically, I use Animoto to make all my ads. Now, what I like to do is I'm going to segment my content into short 4 to 5 second clips using InShot. Now, InShot, I really like it. It's a super simple phone video editor and photo editor. And what it allows you to do is you can easily, once you get the raw content from, let's say, Fiverr, you pay someone to create raw content for you, raw video content. You can put that on your phone. You can transfer the file using like Google Drive or something, and put that on your phone, and then you can segment the content into 4 to 5 second clips using InShot, and it's really visual. It's easy to play with, and so you can really visually decide what are the best clips to put in my ads. And then you can also, with InShot, you can easily fast forward the video, and that's a really important tool. I fast forward most of my clips because, like I said, a good ad is usually fast-paced, and the regular time isn't fast enough. So InShot allows you to speed it up, and that's another thing that I'll do. So I'll speed it up, and I'll trim it into 4 to 5 second clips, and usually I'll aim to have 8 to 12 different clips to make my ad. And then you want to write a script for your video, and that's another thing that you want to do. So if you got 8 clips, you want to write 8 lines, one for each clip. And in your script, you should focus on the benefits, not the specifications. And you should also explain how this product is going to solve the problem. Now, the script of your video is not that important, so just keep it simple. Make sure there's no grammar mistakes. That is important, right? That looks extremely unprofessional if there's grammar mistakes in your ad. And so that's basically it. And then you also want to test multiple variations with different leading clips. And I'm going to show you that as well. Now, another important thing is watermarking. Watermarking is extremely important, and I figured that too late with this Flex Posture store. I didn't watermark a lot of my first videos, and now they're going all over the place. People are still advertising with the videos that I got made myself. So make sure to watermark your content. Having a logo in the top right corner is not enough. Animoto lets you do that by default. Not enough. Don't do it. You need to have about 15% opacity watermark. I put 25 here, but 15% is good enough. Dead center of your video, so right in the center, and that makes it so people can't steal your video, right? Because your URL is right in the center. So I usually put my URL as a watermark, and people can't steal a video that way. Now you can do this with any video editor on PC, or you can use InShot, which also allows you to overlay text with 15% opacity, and that's what I do. I use InShot. I use InShot for a lot of video editing needs. Now, with Animoto, you can easily test scroll stoppers by replacing the first clip, and this makes all the difference. And now you have to think about the cut and band-aid method that I was telling you earlier about. The scroll stopper is really the cut, it's what allows you to apply this method. And so you want to find scroll stoppers that will kind of cut the audience without, being too offensive or too crazy. So I'm going to show you some examples, and hopefully it's going to all make sense. So there was 3 main people that I reached out to on Fiverr initially. So the first one is Olena Kit, the second one was KJ Promotions, and the third one was Kevin J. Bond. And so I sent a generic message to all of them. And I said, hey, I'm Gabriel, the owner of Flex Posture. We need a promo video shot for a posture correction product. We don't need any voiceover editing, just raw content of you showing how to use the product. We want an upper body shot of you putting on the back brace, fitting the straps, and then spinning around to show the back. After that, we just need a clip of you buttoning up a shirt on top to show that you can wear clothes on top of it. And then I said, let me know your thoughts and we can talk about pricing. And then they all pretty much quoted me the same price, which was $50. So I had to spend $50 on each of those people, and that gave me amazing video content to work with. And so the first one that I did was KJ Promotions, and this by far was the best Fiverr gig I've ever purchased in my life. And so with KJ Promotions content, I was able to build this first ad here. So vid number 105. And this ad is really what like changed the game for Flex Posture. It really helped me to scale further. It helped me to scale more with Instagram influencer promotions. And it was just a really great ad overall. So this is the girl KJ Promotions, and she recorded all these clips, and then I trimmed them on InShot like I was talking about. I sped them up a bit, and I made this ad. So let's take a look at the ad. And so you're gonna see what it was like. So that was my scroll stopper. Now that wasn't the best scroll stopper, and you have to keep in mind that throughout this whole experience, I was learning myself. Right, this is my biggest store to date, and it was a great learning experience for me. So this is where I learned a great majority of my skills. And this is where I really learned to test scroll stoppers heavily. So this was the first scroll stopper that I tested myself. Now, it wasn't that great of a scroll stopper, right? It was just her kind of looking sad and slouching with rounded shoulders. And so then it pops up, this device corrects your posture, and she's trying it on. And then bang, it shows posture getting fixed. This video is super helpful. It shows the solution. So that was kind of the Band-Aid, and that was the cut. So that was the cut, and then that was the Band-Aid. Now, you guys get the idea. And then, I'm showing her again. She's showing the back. She's showing her posture. And then another showing how the posture is getting fixed. And then she's putting a shirt on top. And I'm saying you can simply wear it under your top during the day. And then another showing kind of before and after thing. And then share with a friend that needs this. So this was the first original video content ad that I created. Actually, that's not true. The first one was this one that I showed you here. But so yeah, that was what I did with that content. Now the content from Olena Kit right here was also very useful. I was able to scale that one quite a bit as well. As you can see, this is a video that I made using her content. It has 1 million views. And so let me turn off the sound. A similar idea, I made it with Animoto, just the first 3 seconds. This is the watermark that I'm talking about, the URL, www.flexposture.com. And then everything else is really the same, right? It's my videos weren't that different. The script was always the same for every single video. And then I have videos from the other girl that I paid on Fiverr. And then, the same clips. Once again, the same clips. Another clip from her. So you guys get the idea. I mean, they were slight variations with just different content. And especially the start of the video has different content, which is really what makes the biggest difference. So that's what I did. And then now, what really made the big difference is when I started to test different scroll stoppers. So these ones were doing pretty well by themselves, right? Like this one, another one with the Olena girl. So I did the same scroll stopper for this one because it did pretty well when I tried it for this one, the girl who's just kind of slouching for a second at the start. And so that did well. And so I did it again with this girl. And it did well again. But what really, really did well is when I started really testing that cut and Band-Aid method. And I'm going to show you the best example of it that I have, which is this one here. This one right here. And so this was the same ad. This was the same ad as this one. And pretty much all I did was I replaced this video with another video that I found online. And this video was a video from a company that sold this posture corrector in the Philippines like 2 years back. And I found this on YouTube. And so, I was pretty confident. It was an animation and it was from like a Philippines company. I was pretty sure that I wasn't going to get into any legal issues for using this. Now there is some risk, but I took the risk. And so I took this clip and then I added this text at the bottom. I used InShot once again for this. So slouch much. And this was kind of like the cut, part of the cut. And the cut is also how much she's slouching, right? And so you can see in the comments, people are like, hands up for all the people who sat correctly after watching the clip. Like this really grabbed people's attention. And that's why this video was so successful. So I'm going to play the video for you now and just let you see for yourself. Slouch much, and then same video, right? It's the same thing. It's the same girl. This device corrects your posture. And then this clip again. I really like this clip. Same girl once again. And then this guy right here. This is the Kevin J. Bond right here. I paid this guy $50 again, and he made this content. Simply wear it under a top. And then that's that was pretty much it. So this ad is pretty much the exact same ad that I showed you at the start, right? This ad, But at changing the first 3 seconds to this clip right here, made it into the most successful ad that Flex Posture has ever had. So this ad, it got 10 million views, 4,000 shares, 10,000 comments. This ad alone must have brought, multiple 6 figures in sales. So this ad was extremely successful, and all I did to get this ad was I changed the first 3 seconds. Now I have a few more examples of this, right? So this one, for example, same exact video once again, and the only difference is the first 3 seconds. So, in the first 3 seconds, I have this kind of hologram dude who has some neck pains and, some related to back issues. And so that's just to grab people's attention, right? Slouch much, and then gets people's attention, and then the same video, once again, exact same video. So only the first 3 seconds change. And, this video did quite well, especially for retargeting. So it really does make all the difference. Now, I tested a bunch of variations, and a lot of these videos are deleted now, but, I really tested as many of those variations as possible, and that's how you that's how you find successful ads with Facebook. You need to test, and especially test the first 3 seconds. The first 3 seconds are the scroll stopper, and that's what's going to make all the difference whether or not your video is going to be seen by the majority of your audience. So that is it for this lesson, guys. I really hope this was helpful, and I'll see you guys in the next lesson. All right, everyone. So in this lesson, I'm going to be showing you how I scaled further with extremely broad audiences instead of lookalike audiences. So the requirement for this is that you test a lot of creatives. So at this point, I had already tested a lot of creatives, and I showed you in the last lesson how you can make winning creatives, and this is the best one that came out of that. So I was testing a bunch of different scroll stoppers, a bunch of creatives, and I found this one, which was extremely profitable. And so this is the one that I scaled the most to 10 million views. And this creatives was so profitable that I didn't even need to use lookalike audiences. So at the start, I was using lookalike audiences for that first video that I showed you, because it was a little bit more niche. It wasn't as good of a video that I could just target anyone and it would be profitable. But this video was so effective at the cut and band-aid method that I explained, and really making people want to get this product, that I could target extremely broad audiences and let Facebook optimize for me, and it would be profitable. So let me show you what I mean. So this campaign here, I had a campaign called, if I go to amount spent, this campaign right here, I was targeting EPAC countries and then just demographics and interests. So this is the campaign that I spent the most on after retargeting. And as you can see, this campaign only had a return on ad spend of 1.7, but that's okay, because first of all, the break even was 1.55. And then second of all, look at all this traffic I was getting, 100,000 website visitors. These are all people that I can retarget, right? And so if I can retarget all those people, with the return on ad spend of 2.6, then the blended ROAS is going to be around 2. And so blended ROAS is like the combination of, you're taking a hit at the start to get people to know about your brand, and then you can retarget them. And then if you combine those two, you get a ROAS that's combined, in this case, it was 1.93 overall blended ROAS. And so let me show you what kind of ad sets I was targeting here. So if I go to amount spent, so this one wasn't doing very well. But as you can see, most of these ad sets that I spent a lot on, so like this one is literally ePacket targeting 18 to 55. So it's targeting everyone. This one is literally just 18 to 55 ePacket. So this is a saved audience that I have. This is all the ePacket countries, English languages, and then feeds only. And then that was it. And then a lowest cost with a bid cap of $50. And I had this running, and as you can see, it was profitable. This is about 20% profit margins, and I was able to spend 3.6K and get 7.2K back. And so I had a bunch of these. This one is the exact same thing except engaged shoppers. Once again, profitable. And then this one is just a duplication of it. And these audiences are so big, right? Like how big is one of these audiences? It's 120 million people, right? So you can duplicate all you want. You're not going to have audience overlap. And so I was targeting broad interests as well. Like this one is just Netflix. And as you can see, 120 million potential reach. So it's doing great. Engaged shoppers, same thing. I had all these different audiences that are just extremely broad audiences that I was testing and I was spending a lot on. And then I was trying to narrow in a bit. So, I broke it down by age, and I saw that the 35 to 55 age range was profitable. And so I narrowed it down to that. And it didn't make that big of a difference, honestly, because this is such a general product. And so that's why most of these ad sets are just 18 to 55, because I didn't really have to narrow down. All I needed to do was just increase the budget, duplicate, and, just keep increasing the budget as much as I could realistically, because pretty much everything I was throwing at it was profitable with this ad because this was such a good ad. So this is the importance of finding a really good ad and testing relentlessly. And as you can see, these are all extremely broad audiences. Netflix. And this is another trick that I like to use as well. This is low CPP countries, so low cost per purchase countries. So I went out of this campaign and then I broke it down by countries, and I sorted by the highest ROAS, and I picked the top countries that had a decent amount of purchases and a really high ROAS. So in this case, it was Ireland, New Zealand, Canada, Singapore, Australia, Hong Kong. And so this is low cost per purchase countries, and I just threw them in an ad set together, and as you can see, 2.55 ROAS. And these are all extremely broad audiences, right? And the fact that I had this really good ad is what allowed me to do this, and then I could retarget and make a killing and be extremely profitable with these audiences. So, a lot of people think that there's some kind of secret strategies to Facebook, and the truth is that if you have something good, pretty much everything you throw at it will work on Facebook. So the question is how do you get your funnel to the point where you have a great ad, a great product, and a great offer, and everything just works? And the way to do that is to relentlessly test different ads. And so I had to test a lot of ads to do this, and eventually I found this one, which was the perfect ad that I could scale to extremely broad audiences. So this one is just Spotify. I would try to narrow it down a lot of times, and the results just wouldn't change that much. Like whatever I did, it would still be quite profitable. And so I started spending an extreme amount on these audiences profitably, and it was extremely easy to manage these ads. All I had to do was increase the budget, and then every few days I would kill the ad sets that weren't working. So I would look at the last 3 days of data, kill the ad sets that were below my break-even point, and then I would create more ad sets similar to those that were working. And so the result is that I had this army of ad sets that were profitable, and everything that wasn't profitable, I would just pause it, and I would create new ones that resembled the ones that were profitable. So that's how you really scale to broad audiences. You don't need to have extremely narrow audiences all the time, and a lot of people don't even think to test broad audiences like this, but they can work extremely well, especially for general products. So that's it for this quick lesson on scaling to broad audiences. All right, so in this lesson, I'm going to be talking about how to fight inconsistencies with Facebook ads. Inconsistencies are one of the biggest problems you're going to be faced with when you run Facebook ads at scale, especially when you just have one product, right? Because all your eggs are kind of in one basket, and so if it stops doing well, your sales will really drop. And so fighting inconsistencies is one of the biggest parts of this strategy. And I'm going to be actually explaining the main reasons why we get these inconsistencies with Facebook ads, and then I'm going to be talking about how you can solve them. And then lastly, I'm actually going to be taking you through the ads manager for Flex Posture month by month to show you when inconsistencies popped up and then what I did to fix them. So what are the main reasons for inconsistencies? Well, there's two main reasons. Number one is ad fatigue. And so this is when you've been scaling an ad for a little while, and it was performing great at the start, but now it just isn't performing as well. Facebook doesn't like it as much anymore. People have already seen it, and they're kind of becoming immune to it. That's what ad fatigue is, and this happens all the time. Usually after 1 to 2 months of an ad, scaling, it'll stop performing as well. Then you'll need to start creating new ads. Now the second reason is audience fatigue. And this happens especially with lookalike audiences and smaller audiences that you're scaling heavily to. Once you start scaling too much, pretty much everyone in that audience has seen the ad, or Facebook just decides that your ad isn't the best match for that audience, and then it stops showing it as much. And so those are the two main reasons: ad and audience fatigue. And so how do you fight those? Well, fighting ad fatigue, first of all, the way to fight ad fatigue is to create new ads. It's pretty straightforward, but it's true. So, you need to consistently test new ads. And I know I've said this multiple times in other lessons already, but this is true. It's key. You want to create new ads consistently, and, you can test them with the PPE campaign. That's what I did, and I'll show you that in a second. But basically the same thing that I did with the launch, just a worldwide PPE campaign. And then, I run it at like $10 a day. And that'll get me some data so I can see if this ad, is getting a low cost per engagement relative to the other ads that I'm already working with. And, I can get a comparison that way. And I get the added bonus of social proof. So this is really easy way to introduce new creatives at the start. just test them with a PP campaign. And then if the results look good, you can introduce them in other campaigns. Now, finding a new ad that works on cold traffic is obviously the goal here. So when you create a lot of new variations of your ads, most of them will work really well for retargeting, and that's what I like doing. So that's why my retargeting audiences have a lot of ads in them. Usually when I test new creatives, I'll also put them in, if the PP campaign shows decent results, I'll duplicate that creative into my retargeting ad sets, and that'll usually do well. But the key is finding something that works on cold traffic. So slight variations can really be enough, especially for ad fatigue. So sometimes, all you need to fight ad fatigue is change the scroll stopper. And in the case of Flex Posture, that's all it took. And that's all I focused on, is changing the scroll stopper. And that was enough to fight ad fatigue. Now, how do you fight audience fatigue? Well, to fight audience fatigue, you need to test new audiences. So this is all pretty common sense, right? But this is really important. So once your audiences stop performing as well, you need to find new audiences. And so you can do this by testing new interests, by testing new broad demographics. And that's what I did for Flex Posture. I started testing new broad demographics and really broad interests, and that gave me a lot of new audiences. And I'm going to be showing you that once again in a few minutes. Now, you want to test. You can also test new lookalike audiences. So this is a little trick that not that many people know about. But if you change the time frame of the source custom audience, the data is going to be really different. And so you're going to have kind of a totally different lookalike audience. And so, for example, if for example, your add to cart lookalikes have been doing really well, and you have an add to cart in the last 30 days lookalike audience, well, what you could do is you could also test add to cart in the last 180 days. And so you'd have more data, and so the lookalike audience that it generates would be different. And you could also test add to cart in the last 7 days if you have enough in the last 7 days. And so by changing the time frame of the source custom audience, you can get a different lookalike audience, and you can test those, and that'll give you a new audience to scale to if you can find one that's profitable. And so I did that a lot with Flex Posture as well. I tested different time frame of lookalike audiences. Now, the last thing you can do to fight audience fatigue is to test different combinations of audience plus creative. Now, this one is absolutely key. And this is what I did a lot for Flex Posture as well, is, as my lookalike audience campaign started dying out, what I would do is I would just create a new lookalike audience campaign, for the best countries that I identified. And I would look at, I would take the best lookalike audiences that I had from my previous campaign. So if I noticed that add to cart buyers and, add to cart buyers and 95% video viewers, if I saw that those were the best performing lookalike audiences, I would create a new campaign with those lookalike audiences, but then I would try a lot of different audience and creative combinations. So I would test, 3 to 5 creatives in each ad set. And so basically that allows me to find new audience plus creative matches, and so that helps fight ad fatigue and audience fatigue all at once. And so now I just want to take you inside my ads manager to show you some concrete examples, because I understand that was a bit confusing. So right now this date range is July 1st to 31st. So realistically, this is the same thing as the 21st to the 31st. And so this was the first month. And as you can see, everything was smooth sailing at this month. This was just one ad that I was working on. I think I was starting to test a few more creatives already at this point, and I was already planning on making my new creatives. I was sending content. I was sending the product to people on Fiverr to get content made. But everything was going really well this month. Now let's see what happened the next month. So this was only for 2 weeks. And so during these 2 weeks, there probably wasn't that much ad or audience fatigue. It wasn't enough time for that to happen. And so let's see what happened in August. So as you can see, in August, everything, it actually did even better, right? And so 2.04 return on ad spend, and then no problem. Everything was smooth sailing. Now let's go to September. Now, as you can see, September, things kind of started declining. So probably near the end of September is when the return on ad spend started dipping. And so at this point, this is when I knew that I really needed to start testing new audiences and testing new creatives. And so you can see that here I started testing interests. I was testing different interests, all these different kinds of interests, and it really wasn't working that well. Now, let's see what else I was doing. So I was also creating a bunch of different lookalike audience campaigns for my best country. So this is what I was saying here about trying different combinations of audience plus creative. So I was creating new lookalike audience campaigns for individual countries, and then I was testing different creatives. And so also that didn't work that well, but sometimes it did, like this one right here, the UK lookalikes. This one seems like it was doing pretty well. And so I was just testing these different audience matches, and I was doing the same thing, the same thing to scale them. I was either duplicating to higher budgets or scaling by grouping audiences, and that's what I was doing. But I was really just trying to find new audiences to target and test new ads. And so to show you that I was testing new ads, let's see the PP campaign here. PPE right here. So this was a PP campaign, and let's see what I was spending on. So I was testing all these new ads. So I tested 3 new ads that month. Now let's go to the next month and see what happened. So if I sort by amount spent again, so if we go to October, so you can see that October I recovered again. So how did I recover again? Well, I know exactly what happened. So what happened is I found that new ad that I was telling you about. So if I go to Facebook/Flex Posture, I found a new ad that was extremely profitable, which is this one right here. So I found this new ad, by testing a lot of different combinations. This was just one of the same, this was just a different scroll stopper that I tested. And so, this made all the difference. And I found this new ad. And so with this new ad, I was able to start scaling to extremely broad demographics. So I took a new ad and I started scaling to new audiences. And so that's how I was really fighting inconsistencies, right? I was fighting ad fatigue and audience fatigue by testing new creatives and then finding new audiences to scale with. And so, what I spent the majority of my budget on that month is this campaign here, where I was testing really, really broad audiences, just literally targeting everyone, just e-packet countries, 18 to 55, 340 million potential reach, right? And so that's how I was able to fight this audience fatigue and this creative fatigue. Now let's see what happened in November. So November, it started dropping again. And so at this point, I started to test more things once again. So I was testing, this was actually Black Friday and Cyber Monday month. So, I was doing a lot of retargeting that month. And that's another way that you can, stay consistent, right? Is if your cold traffic isn't working well, then you should really focus on taking advantage of the audiences that you already have. And so I had a bunch of different retargeting campaigns, and I was testing a lot of different setups for retargeting with a lot of different ads. I ran a lot of big promotions for Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and really that's how I was fighting these inconsistencies. I was always just testing new things, testing new audiences, and really just trying my best to avoid ad and audience fatigue. And so that's really the only way that you can fight ad inconsistencies with Facebook, is test relentlessly and find new audiences and find new ads to scale out to. And so that's it for this lesson, guys. I hope it was helpful, and I'll see you guys in the next one. All right, everyone. So in this lesson, I'm going to be talking about how you can take advantage of the Facebook algorithm. Now, this isn't really a part of the case study. However, I really wanted to include a lesson on this because I've been learning a lot about it. And, I really didn't take full advantage of this with Flex Posture. But 2019 and beyond, this is becoming increasingly important. And so I really wanted to include something about it. So the first thing is long-form engagement. Facebook has been putting out a lot of updates, and one of the main changes is that ads and pages that have a lot of real long-form engagement get favored in the algorithm. And so the pages and posts that have a lot of engagement get a lower CPM on their ads. And this is really important. If you have a lower CPM, you get more reach cheaper, and then it's a lot easier to scale. And so posts that have a lot of real engagement get a lower CPM, but also pages that have a lot of posts with a lot of engagement, those pages are favored in the ad platform as well, and they are going to get a lower CPM. So how do you take advantage of this? Well, number one, you always want to run a PPE campaign alongside your main campaigns. So this is why I always test new ads with PPE, is that you really want to have a PPE campaign running alongside your other campaigns. PPE will help drive up your engagement, and not only for social proof, but also because the more engagement you have, the better your CPM will be. Now, you need to have real long-form engagement. So if it's just, one-word comments, that's not going to help. You need to have real discussions happening in the comments, and that's really going to help you get a lower CPM. Now, another thing you can do to take advantage of this is you can hire virtual assistants to respond to the comments that you're getting on your posts. And this is very effective. If you hire more people on your customer service team to respond to all the comments on your posts, this will help increase the engagement, right? If every time someone asks a question about the product or says like, "Oh, I really want this," you can just reply to them with, a long sentence and then linking them to the product. Now, this will not only help convert the customers, but it will increase the long form engagement on your posts, which will help you get a lower CPM, which will help you scale a lot more. And so this is absolutely key. And there's still not that many people who are doing this, but everyone should be doing it because it's totally worth it. The return on investment on hiring more VAs to do this, will be huge in the form of more reach on your ads. Now, another thing you can do to take advantage of this algorithm is that you can boost page posts to get engagement on your page. So if your page has a lot of page posts that have a lot of engagement, your page is going to perform better in the ads. And so that's why, in the launch blueprint at the start of this module, when I was showing you how I launched the Flex Posture Store, that's part of the reason why I like using page posts instead of dark posts. Because by using page posts and scaling those page posts, you're kind of priming your page to be, a very active and engaging page, and then Facebook will favor that page in the ad delivery. So that's another thing you can do. Now, you don't need to do this all the time. If you have a few posts with a lot of engagement, that's good enough. You just want to make sure that your page isn't completely empty and there's nothing going on with your page. You want to have some real engagement on your page because that will help you get lower CPMs. Now, the last thing you can do to take advantage of this is just creating engaging ads, right? And this one is, that's straightforward. The more engaging your ad is, the more real engagement you're going to get, and therefore the better the CPM you will get. But the key takeaway here is that you really want some long form engagement on your ads. And so you want discussions happening in the comments, you want to reply to the comments, and you want to run pay per engagement campaigns to help drive up that engagement as well. Now, the second thing I want to talk about with this algorithm is the customer feedback score. Now, I'm sure a lot of you have already heard a lot about this. A lot of people are talking about it, but for a good reason. I mean, it's very, very important. This customer feedback score is going to become extremely important in 2019 and beyond because, Facebook is actually rolling out a lot more of these surveys. Last year, they weren't rolling out that many. Now they're rolling out a lot, and it's just going to keep increasing. And so you're always going to get feedback on your ads from now on. And so if people are not happy with your service, if they don't receive their products in a timely manner, if you don't respond to their emails, they're not going to leave good feedback, and then you're going to get a terrible customer feedback score, and then Facebook just won't deliver your ads. And so a lot of people ignore this, but this is very important. So therefore, you must have good shipping times and respond quickly to requests. Now, if you have, pretty slow shipping time, if you're shipping with ePacket, you can still get a good customer feedback score if, you have great customer service. So whenever someone, is worried about their order, you need to have someone reply within 24 hours. You need someone to reply and give them an update on their order. And if you don't do this, once you start scaling a lot and Facebook starts asking for customer feedback, you're going to get completely shut down. And so those are the main things that you need to keep in mind to really take advantage of the Facebook algorithm in 2019 and beyond. And so I found an example of an ad that I wanted to show you that's really taking advantage of this long form engagement bias, right? And so this is allowing them to scale like crazy because they have a ton of real engagement on their posts. So this is an ad for a mascara. It's basically this mascara that makes your lashes longer. And so, it's really not that good of an ad, to be honest. Like, it's not even a proper square. There's a bunch of empty space that's useless. The captions are hard to read. Not that great of an ad. But these guys are obviously running a PPE campaign because there's a ton of engagement happening. And the other thing you notice is that they're responding to their comments super quick. Every time someone comments, they respond. And they respond with a long form message, which is creating all these discussions in the post, right? So like every time someone comments, they respond. Like 5 hours ago, they responded. They responded here, they responded here, they responded here. And so as you can see, they respond to their comments very quickly. And what this does is it boosts the engagement on their page, it boosts the engagement on that post, and it allows them to get a much lower CPM. And so if you don't believe me, just take a look at how much these guys have been scaling. It's pretty crazy. So if you don't know this trick, you can take the bit.ly link and then just add a little plus, and let's take a look. So they launched this ad January 18th, and on the first day they got 800 clicks, and ever since then they've been getting about 11,000 clicks to 20 to 30,000 clicks even a day. And so since January 18th, they've gotten 210,000 clicks, which probably translate to 200 or 300K in sales. And so these guys are absolutely killing it. And I think one of the main reasons why is literally just because they're really taking advantage of the Facebook algorithm, right? They've got a ton of real engagement happening in their comments, which is giving them a free distribution multiplier. It's helping their posts get seen more at a lower cost. And so you definitely want to be taking advantage of the Facebook algorithm to the fullest by, increasing engagement, responding to comments, hiring people to respond to comments, running a PPC campaign alongside of your other campaigns, and having great customer service. So that's it for this lesson, and I'll see you guys in the next one. All right, so in this lesson, I want to show you a quick Google Ads trick that allowed me to get a 6.41 return on ad spend on $12,000 spent over those over the 5-6 months where I was scaling the store. So the reason why this is in the Facebook ads module is that this trick only works if you're already scaling with Facebook ads. Otherwise, this trick will not work. So the trick essentially is just to target brand name searches on Google Ads. So people who are searching for your brand, people who already know about your brand, you should be targeting them. And so just to show you what I mean, if I type in flex posture on Google right now, there you go. My ad pops up right away. And it just ensures that people sees your brand right away when they search for it. Now, if you look now, I'm actually ranked number 1 for the keyword. So, I don't 100% need this, but there's 2 reasons why you still want it. First of all, when you start to scale, you're not going to be ranked. Like I wasn't ranked for a long time. Like I wasn't ranked at all. I was I'm probably in the 4th page or something. And so it helps, with Google Ads, you can get to number 1 right away. And another thing is that if you don't run these brand name search ads, other competitors are going to hijack you by targeting your keywords. So there's a bunch of people who are selling these posture correctors, right? And so they would try to target the keyword flex posture and they would put their ad right here. Now, the reason that they can't do this if I'm doing it is that my ad is always going to be more relevant than theirs, right? Because I actually have the real flexposture.com website. So as long as I'm doing it, they won't be able to do it. But if I wasn't doing it, it would be like a free opportunity for people to just take away my customers. And so you definitely want to take advantage of brand name searches. Now, how do you set this up? So the way that I've got it set up is I have 2 campaigns, one for the US and one for the UK, Australia, and Canada. So the 4 main countries that I was scaling to. And now, so it's really simple. All I'm doing is I'm targeting 2 keywords for each campaign. So if you go to the keywords, these are the campaigns. These are the keywords I'm targeting for each campaign. So flex posture with a space and flex posture with no space. And I've got the brackets. That means that needs to be an exact match. But this also means that this word needs to be in the keyword, but there can also be other keywords. So if someone types in like flex posture reviews, the ad is also going to pop up. And so, that's really essentially the whole trick. It's not complicated at all. And let me show you the ads. The ads are also very simple. So these are the ads that I was working with. Just simple, flex posture, improve your posture naturally, feel a difference instantly. I tested a few variations of this ad, like this one. Let's see. This is a responsive search ad. So, I tested a bunch of different, and this one actually works quite well. So I just have a bunch of different, little lines, a bunch of different catchphrases, I guess, and headlines. And then it comes up with automatically, it'll test all the different variations and it'll put out the best one. It'll put out the best one once it starts learning based on the variations. So that's all there really is to it. It's a really easy trick to take full advantage of the people who are searching for your brand already. Now, how do you set this up? You do need to have conversion tracking enabled on your analytics. So you need to install analytics on your Shopify store, and then you need to connect analytics to your Google Ads account. So how do you do that? You just go to Tools, Conversions, and then you create a new conversion, and then you import it from Google Analytics. And then this will import the conversions from your analytics from your Shopify store. And then you can create a new campaign, a new Google search campaign with the objective of getting, conversions. So like this new campaign, and then you go to sales. And then it would automatically track the conversions since you've linked it, and then that's all you have to do. You just have to specify the keywords you want to target and make the ads. And so this literally takes like 30 minutes to set up or less, and over those 5 months, it helped me generate an extra $71,000 in revenue. So this is a little tip that I wanted to share with you guys. It's super helpful, and a lot of people don't take advantage of this, so make sure that you do. Last thing, this doesn't really work with general stores, so that's why, this is another benefit of one product brands. Like people aren't going to search for your general store name really on Google, but if you have a one product brand that kind of sticks, people are going to be looking for it on Google, and you can use this strategy. All right, that's it for this lesson. Hey everyone, Gabriel here, and in this video I'm going to be doing an update to the Facebook ads module based on the campaign budget optimization update that's coming to Facebook ads in September this year. So if you haven't heard about this, about campaign budget optimization, or CBO for short, I'm going to be explaining what it is in a second here, but essentially this is becoming mandatory in September this year for all campaigns across Facebook ads. And so I wanted to record this lesson to give you guys an update on this so you're ready when it hits, and just to let you know how this fits in with the strategy that I shared in the course. So that's what this lesson is going to be on, and let's get right into it. So first off, the basic theory of how CBO works. So essentially the only difference is that right now you set the budget at the ad set level. CBO lets you set the budget at the campaign level, and Facebook is going to optimize your spend across the ad sets in that campaign to get the most results. So that's really the only difference between CBO and regular campaigns that we're working with right now. And the idea is that, number one, it's easier to manage, right? Because there's less campaigns than there are ad sets, and so you have less budgets to manage, right? Managing campaign budgets is a lot easier than managing the ad set budgets for all the ad sets. So that's the first reason. And the second reason is that Facebook claims that they've run massive tests, and they find that CBO will get advertisers more results on average than ad set level budgets, right? So they found that it gets better results, and so now they're making it mandatory in September. And so like I said, everything else works the same. The only difference is that Facebook is controlling your budget, right? And they're going to spend it towards the ad sets that they think will get you the most results. And this is similar to the way that multiple ads inside of an ad set optimize. If you have multiple ads instead of an ad set, Facebook is going to optimize the delivery towards the ads that they think are getting the most results at the cheapest price. And so this is the exact same thing, it's just at the ad set level. And so that's how CBO works. It's really not that complicated, but you should get used to it. And so now I'm going to talk about some of the strategies that I use with CBO, some of the best practices. Now I want to talk a little bit about when you should be using CBO and how it fits in with the strategy that I shared in the course so far. So the strategy that I shared in the course is still efficient for launching a new store and collecting data. You don't really need to use CBO for that part, because CBO currently it works best for scaling but not for testing. And the reason why is simple. Let's say that you're testing 10 interests with a $100 CBO campaign, right? What's going to happen is that some of those interests are going to get $30 of the spend, $20 of the spend, and some of them are going to get almost no spend at all. And so you're not accurately testing the audiences. Facebook is kind of just going to go for it and pick the ones that it thinks are going to do the best, but it doesn't have enough budget to accurately test that, right? And so what happens is that you're not accurately testing all of the audiences. You could be leaving some audiences that could have been very profitable but didn't get any spend on it because you were using CBO. And so for testing, it's better to use regular ad set budgets, right? You can set $10 per interest that you're testing, or $20 or $50, and spend that exact amount. And then you can compare all those ad sets and all the data with an equal spend. And that's the proper way to split test things, right? So testing with CBO, not the best way, but if you're trying to be conservative with budget, it can work well. So I've been doing a lot of testing with CBOs in the past few months, and I want to share some of the best practices that I found. So number one is that they optimize best at higher budgets. And this makes sense, right? If you want Facebook's algorithm to properly optimize your ad spend, then you need to give it some budget to work with so that it can get enough data to optimize. And so the minimum amount that I'll start with for a CBO scaling campaign is 5 times my target cost per purchase times the number of ad sets. And by target cost per purchase, I mean, the benchmark that you've been getting on your ad account and what you expect to get. And so if your target cost per purchase is $10, then that would be 50 times the number of ad sets for your minimum budget. And like I said, this is for a CBO scaling campaign. So this is for audiences that you've already tested before and are profitable, and now you want to scale them and give them the best chance to perform well. And so you should start with a high budget according to this formula. And what I'll do is I'll usually do 10 times the target cost per purchase times the number of ad sets, but 5 times is the minimum that I'd recommend. Now for testing with CBO, the minimum budget that I'd recommend is just 1 times your target cost per purchase times your number of ad sets. And if your target cost per purchase was $10 and you had 15 interests that you wanted to test, then the minimum campaign budget that I'd recommend is $150. And like I said earlier, testing with CBO, I wouldn't recommend it. It's only if you want to be conservative with budget, and that can work well in that case. But otherwise, I'd recommend testing with regular ad set budgets. Now, the number of ad sets per campaign, what I found that works best, what's the sweet spot for scaling, is 5 to 10 ad sets per campaign. And usually I'll just do 5 ad sets per campaign for scaling. Now, for testing, I'd recommend 10 to 20 ad sets per campaign. Now, the last thing is that for scaling low-ticket products, I've seen better results using a 1-day click conversion window versus a 7-day click, 1-day view. All right, so now I want to talk a little bit about scaling with CBO. So the first thing is that CBOs can be scaled a lot more aggressively than ad set budgets. And this is something that I've noticed with my own ad accounts, but also that the Facebook ads community seems to agree on. And so to scale CBOs, all I've been doing is editing the campaign and increasing the budget. There's no need to duplicate the campaign and increase the budget. You can just edit the existing campaign and increase the budget. And this is the general workflow of what I've been doing to scale CBOs. So if a campaign is very profitable, over 30 to 40% net profit, then I'll increase the budget by 50 to 100% every 2 days. So let's say that a campaign on the first day has a net profit of 40%, then I would probably just increase the budget by 100%. I would double the budget and I would see how that performs. And then for the next day, if for the next day the performance drops, I would just leave it running and wait until the next day, right? Because there could be a performance drop after a sudden increase in budget, but then it could re-optimize and stabilize. So I'd always give it 2 days after a budget change to make my next decision. And so that's the first thing. If a campaign is very profitable, over 30 to 40% net profit, I would increase the budget by 50 to 100% every 2 days. If a campaign is profitable but not extremely profitable, what I would do is I would take a more conservative approach to scaling and I would just increase the budget by 20% every 2 days. Now, if a campaign is barely profitable, so less than 15% profit, I would just leave it at the current budget as long as it's not losing money, right? If it's profitable but just on like 10% profit or something, that's not enough profit to really scale that campaign because scaling is probably going to eat up your margins. But if you just leave it running at the current budget, you can collect data and make a little bit of profit on autopilot. Now, when your performance starts to dip as you scale, you want to do the same thing in reverse. So let's say that you increase a campaign budget by 50% and then the next day it tanks and then you wait 1 more day and it's still doing very bad. Then what you would want to do is you want to decrease the budget. You want to edit that same campaign and decrease the budget. And so if there's a significant drop in the performance, what I'll do is I'll decrease the budget by 33%. 33% because it compensates for a 50% increase. And so I'll decrease it 33% every 2 days until the results balance out to what they were before. And if a campaign performance drops just a little bit, what I'll do is I'll decrease the budget by about 15% every 2 days. And so these percentages that I'm telling you for the increases, you want to take these with a grain of salt. It's not like an exact magic number that's going to get you good results. This is just what I've been doing and getting good results with. And so that's the general idea of how you scale with CBO and then decrease the budget once the results start declining. All right, so now I want to go a little bit more in depth into my CBO strategies that I use for scaling. So I have 2 main strategies that I like to use for scaling. Number 1 is top interests, and number 2 is super lookalikes. So I'm going to start by talking about the top interest one, and then I'm going to hop into my ads manager to show you a case study of that applied in practice. So what I'll do is I'll start testing 15 to 20 single interests in a new campaign. And for testing, I recommend ad set level budgets, as I talked about earlier, but you can use CBO if you're trying to be conservative with budget. And so I'll test 15 to 20 single interests. And the goal here is to get 5 or more interests that are profitable over 2 days. And so what you want to do is you want to keep testing new interests and narrow down the best interests that you find by, a certain age group or a certain demographic, like a set of countries or something, until you find profitable ad sets. And so like I said, the goal is to find at least 5 ad sets that are profitable over 2 or more days. And so once you find 5 ad sets that are profitable over 2 or more days, then you want to take those 5 top ad sets and duplicate them into a new CBO campaign for scaling. And then you want to start it off, at the budget that I talked about in the scaling slides and, run it that way. And this works really well. So I want to hop into my ads manager now. I'm going to show you an example of that. Here we are inside of one of my ad accounts. Now this is not the ad account for Flex Posture. As you guys know, I didn't use much CBO for Flex Posture. And so this is a different brand that I'm working on, and I've been using a lot of CBO, doing a lot of testing with CBO for this brand. And so I've selected here some campaigns. to show you all the strategies that I'm going to be talking about. And so the first one that I was talking about is the top interests. And so these two campaigns here are from that top interest workflow. Now, these weren't my best performing campaigns, but they were still profitable because the break-even return for this store is 1.5-ish. And Facebook also doesn't track all the conversions, right? So the actual return on ad spend was probably above 2.0 here, but Facebook just didn't track everything. So first off, I want to show you how I set this up. So I had two campaigns for this top interest workflow. I had the one to test the ad sets, to test all the different interests, and then I had the CBO campaign for scaling. So here is the interest test one, and this is the regular budget campaign that I was doing. And as you can see, I was testing with $50 daily budgets. You could do $20, $10. I would recommend at least 20. I like to do 50 because I don't mind spending a lot. And so as you can see, I was testing all these different ad sets, right? I was testing a ton of different audiences, a ton of different interests. I was narrowing them down by specific age ranges and countries, and I ended up finding a lot of audiences that are profitable, right? And so the reason there's so many interests here is that this is more than just one round of testing. I was reusing this campaign, and I've tested a lot of interests over and over again in this campaign, and I would take the top 5 ones. So in this case, it's hard to say exactly because this isn't the data that I would have had when I duplicated it to my top 5 campaign, but I would take, probably in this case, I would just take these 5 top interests, right? And then I would duplicate them. So I would press duplicate and then to a new campaign. Now I don't want to do that right now because it's going to show my store name and everything, but duplicate them to a new CBO campaign. And so in that case, this was the CBO campaign here, this top interest CBO campaign. And as you can see, this campaign has spent $21,000, made back $39,000, and I scaled this the exact same way that I was talking about in the slides. I scaled it up to probably about $2,000 daily budget. Then I scaled it down, but the performance was really declining, so I just paused it for now. But this was, it was very profitable, and there's not much to say about it really. So I always had 4 to 5 ad sets running at one time, and when ad sets stopped performing, I would pause them, and then I would duplicate a new ad set from the testing campaign. And so I would always have 5 ad sets running here, each with a different interest. And then one of them stopped performing, I would pause it, I would duplicate a new interest from the testing campaign over here. And that was the workflow. And that's pretty much all there is to say about it. You can do multiple of these top interest campaigns, right? You could have 2 different interest test campaigns and 2 scaling campaigns, and you can structure it that way as well. So this works very well. I like this strategy. You don't need lookalike audiences. All you need to do is you need to do proper audience research to find interests to target. And then once you start finding the interests that are working well, then you can expand on that, right? You can use the duplicate. You can duplicate the ad set and then use the suggestions in the ad set editor, right? There's suggestions for interests, and those are usually good interests if the one that you're using right now is profitable. And another thing you can do is you can go into your audience insights. So if you go all tools and then you go to audience insights, you can go here, then you can enter an interest that you know is profitable, and then it'll give you a list of similar audiences that you can target. And so those are 2 strategies that you can use to find more interests. And essentially, you always want to be testing new interests in your test campaign, and then you want to duplicate the best ones over to this CBO scaling campaign, and you want to keep cycling new ones in to keep everything fresh, right? If an interest stops performing, you want to duplicate a new one in. And that's essentially the top interest campaign setup. And yeah, I hope that makes sense. All right, so now I want to talk about the second strategy that I use for scaling with CBO, and that is super lookalike audiences. Now, what are super lookalike audiences? Essentially, it's just grouping lookalike audiences together to create larger lookalike audiences. And I've already talked about the benefits of grouping audiences in the scaling by grouping section. And this is no different. This is just doing it in a more structured way and also combining it with CBO. So the way that I'll do this is I'll start off by testing all the 1% lookalike audiences that I have in a new campaign. So I'll start testing, website visitors, top website visitors by time spent, add to cart, initiate checkout, purchases value-based, Facebook engagement, Instagram engagement, really all the different lookalike audiences that you can test. You want to test all the 1% audiences in a new campaign. And after 2 days, so you want to leave it running for 2 days to really get some good data on that. After 2 days, you want to take the top 3 lookalike audiences with the most purchases and the best return on ad spend. So you want to look at both of those, purchases and return on ad spend, and determine what your top 3 lookalike audience types are. And after you do that, you want to turn off those 3 lookalike audience ad sets in the testing campaign and create a new campaign stacking the 1%, 1 to 2%, 2 to 3%, 3 to 4, and 4 to 5% audiences for those 3 lookalike audiences types, and create a new campaign with that. So you'll group all the 1% lookalike audiences together, all the 1 to 2% lookalike audiences together, all the 2 to 3, all the 3 to 4, and all the 4 to 5 from those 3 lookalike audiences types, and you'll create a new campaign with that. So you'll have 5 ad sets for each percent range. And that's going to be your super lookalike audience campaign. And then you just want to scale that like a regular CBO campaign. And usually those campaigns work really well. It'll be very targeted audience, and you'll have 5 equal size audiences for the campaign budget optimization to work with. And so I really like this strategy. It's been getting me really good results, and I'm going to hop into my ads manager now to show you that in practice. All right, so we're back inside of my ad account, and I'm going to show you 3 campaigns that are relevant to this super lookalike audience strategy. So this is my testing campaign where I was testing all the 1% lookalike audiences. And then here were my 2 super lookalike audience campaigns that I ran for a while. As you can see, the testing campaign, I spent about $1,000, and that was not very profitable. It was right about a break even. So I didn't even lose money on the testing. I just got data. And then after doing that, my super lookalike audience campaigns, you can see that I was able to spend $50,000, over $50,000 on both of those campaigns in just like a month or two. I've got this data range selected, but this was all spent in about a month or two on those 2 campaigns, and they were both very profitable, both hovering at about 1.8, 1.9 return on ad spend, which is an actual return on ad spend of above 2 if you take into account the conversions that Facebook doesn't track. So this strategy was very profitable, and it's very scalable. As you can see, you can spend a lot of money on these campaigns. So I'm going to break it down for you now. So this is the testing campaign. As you can see, this was a CBO campaign. Although I recommend testing with ad set budgets, I was testing with CBO in this case just to see if it worked out well, and it actually worked out pretty good for the second step of the strategy. But I would recommend doing your initial testing campaign with ad set budgets. I already explained earlier in this presentation why I recommend ad set budgets for testing. But in this case, it was a CBO campaign, and I was testing all the 1% lookalike audiences. So I was testing Facebook engagement, add to cart, purchase, initiate checkout, Instagram engagement, and I was also testing the 30 days of data versus 7 days of data for all of those lookalike audiences. And so I let that running for 2-3 days. As you can see, it spent $1,000, and there was 3 clear winning lookalike audiences, right? Most of them weren't that profitable, and then these top 3 ones here were all at around 2 return on ad spend. And so these are the 3 lookalike audiences that I chose for my super lookalike audience campaign. And so once I decided that, what I did is I created these new super lookalike audiences campaigns, and this one right here, you can see, so this 1% audience right here is the 1% of those 3 lookalike audience types. I took the 1% for all of them and stacked them together, and then the 1 to 2%, 2 to 3%, 3 to 4, 4 to 5. And I would show you how the ad sets are structured, but that would show you my store name and everything. So I'm not going to do that, but it's very simple. It's literally just the 3 1% audiences. Here it's the 3 1 to 2% audiences. Here it's the 3 3 to 4, and so on. And I leave all these ad sets running. I don't pause any of them. I just leave them all running. This campaign is super easy to manage. You don't have to touch the ad sets at all once you set them up. All you do is you just manage the budget of the campaign, and Facebook will take care of the rest in terms of optimizing the spend. Now, one thing that I have noticed for these CBO campaigns as well that I forgot to mention in the best practices is that using multiple ads per ad set gets me more consistent results. That's what I found. So I'll use at least 2 ads per ad set. And like I said, this is for later on when you're scaling. So at that point, you should have tested multiple different ads. You should have multiple ads to work with. And so I'll usually do around 3 ads per ad set for my CBO scaling campaigns. And that helps me get more consistent results. And I'll always be testing new ads. And then once I find new good ads, I will duplicate those into my CBO scaling campaigns, right? Because ads do die out, and you always want to be testing new ads, and you want to be cycling new ads in. But that's a whole different topic, so I'm not going to dive too deep into that right now. But yeah, as you can see, this one was a super lookalike audience for just the US. It did very well. And then this one was the same super lookalike audience campaign, but for e-packet countries. So for all e-packet countries, when I was creating the lookalike audiences, I created them for all e-packet countries. And I ran both of these side by side, and they didn't overlap that much because the e-packet countries one mainly got all the countries that I wasn't targeting with the US campaign. So I could have actually just excluded the US from the e-packet countries here, but This campaign was also very profitable. If I break it down by the countries, you'll see that this one was only spending towards the US, and then the other one was spending also a lot to the US, but also a lot to all these other countries, the UK, Australia, Canada, Norway, Sweden, Singapore. And so running these side by side allowed me to really target as many people as I could. Now, looking back on this, I probably should have excluded the United States from the e-packet country campaign here, just to avoid any overlap. But that's the overview of this super lookalike audience campaign. It's very simple to set up. All you need is to have some data for lookalike audiences, right? So this is something that you want to do after you already have a lot of data and you really just want to scale it in a clean fashion like this with these super lookalike audiences, because it's very easy to manage and it's very effective. All right, so I want to talk about a third strategy that I've been using that works quite well for scaling with CBO, and this is just age groups with no targeting. And this works best when you have a lot of purchases on your pixel. So for this strategy, I'd recommend having at least 5,000 purchases on your pixel, because with this strategy, essentially, you're relying on Facebook's purchase optimization to work well. You're giving Facebook a very, very broad audience, and you're just hoping that it knows what a buyer looks like based on your purchase data on your pixel, right? You're telling it to optimize for purchases based on the pixel data that you have. And so you can give them a very broad audience, and Facebook is going to be able to find good people within that audience. And so essentially you just want to split up your audiences into 5 groups of different age ranges, right? Into 5 age ranges. And so this is usually what I'll do. I'll do 18 to 24, 25 to 34, 35 to 44, 45 to 54, and 55 plus. And so I'll create 5 ad sets with just those age groups as the targeting, and I'll also narrow it down to a specific gender if necessary. And then I'll just leave that running, and I'll let it optimize. And I'll pause if there's an age group that's very unprofitable. For example, if 18 to 24 is always unprofitable after a few days, I'll just pause that. And same thing with any age group that's unprofitable. And then I'll let the CBO do its thing. And usually this works really well if you have a lot of purchases. And I'm going to show you an example of that inside my ads manager now. All right, so I'm back into that ad account, and I'm going to show you that campaign now. So I just call it demos for demographics. And this is exactly what I was talking about. So, the 5 age groups, and I'm targeting only women for this product. And as you can see, it did okay. It did a 1.78 return on ad spend, mostly from these 2 audiences here, 25 to 34 and 35 to 44 women. And this one was profitable at the start too, but I guess I ended up pausing it because it wasn't profitable anymore. And I ended up pausing the whole campaign because the performance was declining very significantly. But I've used this similar structure for other stores as well. And sometimes you get very surprising results doing no targeting, just doing these age groups, very broad audiences, and letting the Facebook pixel and the purchase optimization take care of the rest. This works really well if you have a lot of purchase data, and very surprising results. And when you've exhausted your lookalike audiences and your interests, sometimes expanding to these audiences, to very broad audiences, and just letting Facebook do all the work can work very well. So if you have a lot of purchase data, definitely try out this structure because you might be surprised with the results. All right, so now the last thing I want to talk about in this CBO lesson is retargeting with CBO. This is a question that I get asked a lot. Should you be using CBO for retargeting? And the answer is yes, CBO works great for retargeting, and you can use the exact same retargeting structure that I outlined in the course previously. So I showed you guys how I set up my retargeting funnel in the course. I still do it the exact same way, and the only difference is that I switched on CBO, and I've seen better, if not, at least the same results, if not better. And so the exact same campaign structure. I'm going to keep the warm retargeting and the hot retargeting campaign separate. So the hot retargeting is website retargeting, website visitors, add to cart, initiate checkout, etc. And then warm is one step above. So it's people who viewed your ad, engaged with your ads, but haven't actually gone on the website yet. And you want to keep those 2 separate because the warm campaign will often not be profitable, but the hot will be very profitable. And so keep those separate. And increase or lower the ad spend every 2 days just based on the return on ad spend and frequency. So if you have a very positive return on ad spend and you have a low frequency, then increase it very significantly. And the main thing you want to look at is just the return on ad spend. So as long as you have a good return on ad spend, you're good, and you can increase until you see a significant drop in return on ad spend. So I'm going to hop into my ads manager just to show you that in practice. All right, so we're back into that ads manager, and this is my retargeting campaign here. I don't have a warm retargeting campaign on for this store because the warm retargeting isn't profitable for this, only the hot. And this is my retargeting campaign, so you can see it's doing quite well, 2.25 return on ad spend, and I set it up exactly like I show you guys in the course. I have my website visitors, add to cart, and then initiate checkout. And I always exclude the step lower. So website visitors excludes add to cart excludes initiate checkout, and then initiate checkout exclude purchases. And they all exclude purchases. And I also tested website visitors IG story placement, and this actually wasn't profitable, so I just turned it off. But everything else is the same. This is exactly like I show you guys in the course, and I just switched on CBO and let it do its thing, and it works quite well. All right, everyone, so that is it for this lesson on the campaign budget optimization update. I hope it was helpful and cleared up some confusion. And if you have any questions, just hop into the private group and let me know, ask a question there. And, there's probably a lot of members who can help you out, but I'm still engaging every day in the private group answering questions. And so, yeah, I hope this video was helpful. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys next time.